Yeah.
And who is it?
Yeah.
Mr. AC? AC? AC.
Whatever comes, comes.
We knew that.
That's why
We don't need air conditioning.
Oh, it's so well in there, right? It's such a good job. Hardly anything for you to do.
Camera is on.
Hi, Dominic.
Everybody got it?
John.
It's not 10 o'clock yet.
David said nobody missed me. They didn't know I was going. David said,
David?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Ed, I think I may be able to do it. Does it look like it
Oh, yeah.
went?
Sorry. Yeah.
I just need to call him later on.
Not everybody has.
I know, and I spend good money on my my internet. You know, I don't get the $1.99. So I'm saying to myself, I was thinking about it last night, and I'm saying, screw them, I'll just put it through my own email. That's
As
terrible.
long as the people you're sending it are expecting to see that email.
That's what I got told.
It's in the junk.
How was your summer?
Waiting for them to.
How was it?
Summer was good. I was up
Just 3 months
No,
ago.
no, I'm gonna call him.
That's a good idea. Even if you only send an email and Google.
Well,
My
you know what he's
daughter-
gonna ask
I
you to
think
do?
this
She's
way.
still living upstate.
He was gonna ask
She
me
let
to
me
go
come up
out
and
to
visit overnight.
FedEx and send it,
So,
make a
from
copy
where I
of
lived
it
to
for FedEx.
Massachusetts,
I
it wasn't
could've
a
sworn I
bad
gave
ride.
them
Took
copies
master
of the
and go
association
through it.
stuff.
196 miles. I actually had a good time with her. I was debating not going. Well, the children were.
Can I give you a hand here?
So was Julian.
Just toss me a few.
Yeah, it was okay. 2 days
Excuse
was
me,
enough.
I know it's, here we go. Thank you.
We're getting ours on this side.
You wanna give those people,
Is there more coming?
I don't know if we're supposed to give it to her or not.
Hi, Sandy. How are you?
I hope you appreciate the fact that I'm here.
Why, you not going?
I do.
What'd you do?
I had a 9:30 appointment, but I sneaked myself in there at about 9:05.
Oh, just had blood work? Where do you go?
Dr. Lippris?
Oh, no. I go right over here.
I don't
How
know
are you?
anybody there.
Not bad. Hanging in there.
I know the feeling.
Excuse me?
I know the feeling.
If it isn't one thing, it's another.
Looking at the kid.
I ain't going to the doctors anymore. That's what
You better look at it very good. Oh, yeah.
How come?
they always find something.
What you were doing really look great.
Right now.
Well, we've done all this work.
I've had my days.
Hey, you know,
He's
I got my blood sugar.
I've been stressful. That changes your whole biological.
You don't really have any reason to be stressed. Some people should, but he doesn't.
I'm stressed.
We love them. That's because you have to put up with the minutia. One thing, there's a lot to be said for being not making any money, you know, what can they do?
Putting you on for.
Oh, let me get my soda?
Thank you. She got together.
Hi, Sandy.
Did you cut your hair something's different?
Yes, yes, you did.
I haven't seen you in 3 months.
I cut it yesterday.
Sorry, I don't mean to reach over your.
Quite all right.
You want me to get more? I did, look at mine, I just did it like mine.
I got you.
You want me to get you more?
No, this is a ladylike portion, thank you.
Could I have one?
You certainly might.
Thank you, Jim.
Sorry.
So,
That's okay.
We need more, Dan.
excuse me, Laura?
We need one more, Dan.
She's got one. Oh, you need another one?
Got one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. This gentleman just said he wanted to eat us.
He doesn't want one,
Okay.
trust me.
He wants to leave when he can.
Okay.
no, I'm eating my breakfast because I had to stop, I had to
Abby,
do
your
blood
food is
work.
delicious.
Yeah, excellent.
Let's go Trader Joe's.
Really good.
He's having a hell of a time fixing the one problem
Whoever
we
did
have
this was
right now.
excellent.
That's the guy named Sure. How is it that
No,
your
it's late.
system doesn't return IDs?
Does it have any filling?
It's gonna, somebody said it was
That's an
cheese.
almond, it's cheese on the top, it's an almond cake, it's very good.
Oh, I gotta have,
Excellent.
I have a little taste of it.
Yeah.
Not a big piece. Not a big piece, a little piece.
Why your system can't see it, so you can print it out and see what it looks like. You should be able to come up with a picture.
It's good. Yeah, I heard almond paste and I had to have it.
Always got a friend in the system somewhere.
Well, you have to understand,
I didn't say that.
No, I'm more sure.
I don't blame it.
the only one I've ever
You
heard
can
of.
understand. I understand.
I said, I'll do better on birthday cake.
So where are the bones buried? September. Where's the big stuff that we need to look at? We need to target. I know.
Then you didn't even wanna talk to
Look at the
them.
2017 budget, then look at the proposed, figure
Barbara, you're gonna have to explain to me the $700,000 that they're screwing around with that we didn't get put back.
Don't let
no, I don't have to explain, you gotta ask her, she's gonna explain it. Because see my hands today, unless I get really crazy, I'm not crazy,
I
really.
don't know what
I'll let you guys.
No, you're so smart. You're the
Oh,
smartest
you're
one
so
here.
smart saying that.
But no, you are.
I'm not. This is very smart, she's very smart, you're all smart.
How much money did Atlantic Broadband pay me?
You ain't no fool.
Like I took a grant.
I'm learning, I'm learning. You ain't no fool and you haven't been for quite some time. There was that little thing with
Barbara,
Frank
I
though.
heard that Bob Marshall wasn't doing too well, and that's his not.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, I heard it from a
I
friend
didn't
of
see
Molly's.
Molly. Louise might.
She's doing better?
Okay.
I didn't know it was Tommy.
Came up.
Could have been Gertrude.
This time.
Yes, some serious
I
surgery.
had lung something
Oh,
or
lung
other.
cancer.
What are you doing? Turn the damn thing off.
I am.
Go like this to knock them off.
Exactly.
Yeah, she was.
Listen, you good.
No, you don't call me on Friday. You go to the one place I've been dying to try and nobody, and I've never.
He said, she said.
Go tonight.
Where are you going?
So.
Mario the baker.
Look at the, Tony, look at the exhibits, look at the exhibits.
I did, honey.
Which one?
Hey.
Do they have like, a calamari, you know, that. They have
Be a
fish.
witness,
No, no.
and it's one against
They
the
may
other.
have dollar up.
And they're not gonna do a damn thing except write it up.
No shrimp and stuff like that.
No. I'm surprised we didn't tell you. They don't have no fish.
Yeah, but I don't understand, I thought he was in the Senate, excuse me, I thought he was
Wait,
in the
how do I
salary.
know?
Where the movie is. What is that? You just make a U-turn.
Oh, okay,
No,
you're
no.
where the Regal is,
What's the
okay, good.
noise?
Yeah.
What time?
Working on trying
What time?
knockout out of the box.
What time?
5
Oh,
o'clock.
my God.
Yeah, well, they're not, shut all the doors, but we can't have that racket knockout out of it. No.
Good morning.
All right, folks. Operational committee, please come to order.
Shall I close this door as well?
Oh, yeah.
I know, I heard.
This cake is delicious.
Very
It
good,
is,
thank
yeah.
you, Abby.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you very much. Again, I remind you that we're on video, all right, and that this will make its way to the internet in due course. Having said that, where shall we start?
At the beginning.
With the queen of numbers?
I suppose so.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I just wanna make a very brief statement before we get started here. Before people start flipping to the back page of the main budget and get excited. and think we might have a potential nice decrease in our coupon. I wanna tell you briefly what is included in these numbers and what is not right now. We have a lot of work to do. The one thing that is included in this number is the construction of Hartrue tennis courts. There is an alternative number in there for asphalt courts. What is not included in this number is number one, the Millennium Agreement contribution, which will further reduce the coupon, and that's not been calculated yet. It's calculated when we get closer to knowing where the budget numbers are gonna come out to be. The second thing that's not included in these numbers is anything major to do with air conditioning. We have Tim Fegan here with us today, the engineer that's completed a very in-depth analysis of the clubhouse HVAC system, and we're gonna let him speak first before we get started with our budget meeting, because he has other commitments. And the one other thing that is not included in these numbers is any planned work for the North Canal. Derek with DKK that's been analyzing the North Canal is gonna be here at 11 o'clock to speak to you briefly. Yes, Tony?
Does it include the roof for Hastings?
It includes a consultant
Re-roof.
to evaluate the roof.
Which means that you don't have the cost of the roof.
No, not at this point.
So we
have
should
the cost.
we should also put that in and not included, because that was one of the things we had talked about as a possibility.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Were you the gentleman that briefed us, was it on the Chilling project?
Yes.
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 With
A man of many talents.
That was a great briefing. You mentioned something, and I have to make a comment. I had an email fired in here from Les Rifkin, where he in essence implied that the falling and damage and death of Mr. Felker was a result of us not having Hartrue courts. He hurt his head, obviously, and subsequently died. Well, I have a document if anyone wants to read it. This is billion-year-old Precambrian clay, and it is extremely hard. It wouldn't have mattered if he had fallen on a Hartrue court. Poor man cracked his skull. And he would have cracked it on a Hartrue court. Just like he cracked it on the asphalt. The issue of lock gates you're gonna deal with, of course, may have delayed fire and rescue by 8 seconds. I don't know, I didn't measure it all. But this put a very bad taste in my mouth on the, there's no limit to what this club will do to get its way on these courts. And what I say to you is, you go to a map and show me where Roger Federer lives and Martina Navratilova and Rafael Nadal and Venus and Serena Williams. Show me where they live in here. Why we need this level of professional courts. And that's my opinion on Hartrue courts.
Good.
And I'm not unhappy
good.
that it's not on, it's on tape. All right,
Okay,
moving right along.
all right. Thank you, David. Having said that, if there's no other comments or questions, so we'll turn the meeting over to Tim to talk about air conditioning.
Yes.
And Dan has a copy here, or you gave it to David,
Yeah, we've done
of
it.
the full report. It's
Got
a lot of stuff
I'd
in
like
it.
ultimately to scan it to the officers.
Yep.
Yeah, so they're kinda up to date. First I've seen it, folks, don't shoot the message.
I will tell you before Tim starts that I'll pass this out later. I have a one-page summary of what he's gonna be talking about, cause we asked him to break his report up into different phases. And he's broken it up into 4 different phases, so I have a brief summary with the estimated cost that we'll go over later.
Okay.
As they said, I'm Tim Pegans with JLRD Engineers, a local engineering firm here in West Palm Beach. I've been with that company for coming on 25 years now. And before that, I was with another company for about 14 years. So, I was hired by Dan Cruz to perform a study of the HVAC, the air conditioning systems at the clubhouse. So the purpose of that study was to determine the age of the equipment, its condition, how much life it has left, the life expectancy of each piece, and make recommendations on replacements or modifications of those systems. So as they age and reach their end of life, we have recommendations and cost estimates in that study there. Per system and per phase. So we grouped the air handlers in 4 separate phases. I was instructed before I started the study that the first priority, which we made phase 1, would be the biggest problem areas, which my understanding was the card rooms and the party rooms. So that's what is included in phase 1, the replacement of the units in the card rooms, and to make it a better, more controllable system. So you have some individual control in that area, so there aren't hot spots and cold spots, fix the humidity problems. And downstairs in the party rooms, there are some major issues with the party rooms, especially party room number 1. It just can't get the air that it needs. The air handler you have serving that room is a good unit. It's in good shape and can be reused, but the ductwork needs to be fixed a little bit so that it can get the air that it's trying to get out there to that space. So then we went on with the other 3 phases. In phase 2, I grouped everything else in the 2nd floor, which needed replaced or repaired. Some units didn't need replaced. They were in good condition. The next phase was everything remaining in the 1st floor, and the majority of those units are in good condition and don't need replaced yet. The last phase, phase 4, I looked at the 3 rooftop units for the theater. And, you know, as you know, here in South Florida, rooftop equipment has a shorter lifespan than equipment that's inside an air-conditioned space. So I made that phase 4. Those units are still operating fine. They have good capacity. They can take care of the theater, no problem. But, you know, in 5 or 6 years, you're going to need to start thinking about replacing those units as well. So that was part of my study to kind of give recommendations on what needs to be replaced, how much usable life they have left in them, and then also to bring these systems up to the current code requirements as far as outside air that needs to be brought in, energy efficiency, those types of things. So I ran cooling load calculations on the building, outdoor air zone calcs on the building, which is required by ASHRAE and the Florida Energy Code, and it's all included in that study, along with the recommendations. I put 4 cost estimate for each phase in there, and that would be something that I'm sure you're very interested in, what the cost of these things are. Now, this isn't a hard and fast, like if I put something in phase 1, that really needs to be done first. But phase 2, 3, and 4, they can be moved around. They don't have to be phase 2, 3, and 4. You can do phase 3 and phase 2, or, you know, you guys are the owner, you own this. You can even come in and say, I want to do part of this phase and I want to put it and move it into this phase. There's nothing hard about what I'm recommending. It's just how I broke the study up. So yeah, it's a lot of money, but it's a good system. You have the best system available on the chill water side out in your chiller plant. You have a fairly new chiller plant. You have brand new cooling towers. You have a good piping system. So you have a good heart of your building. That's the chiller plant. It's got many years left in it. The extremities, the fingers and toes, they're coming to pieces that need to be replaced or fixed up a little bit. So I'll take any questions you have, but there are some things we need to do as far as the outside air, bringing in the proper amount of outside air and controlling it with automatic dampers. That's required by code now. What is not necessarily required by code, which I still included in the recommendations and in the cost estimate, is how you control that outside air, especially for high occupancy areas like the card rooms and the party rooms, theaters, conference rooms, libraries, things where a lot of people are going to congregate at one time. The CO2 levels in those spaces are going to increase very rapidly. So you have to bring in enough outside air to keep the CO2 level, the parts per million, down in an acceptable range so people stay comfortable and they don't start getting tired. If the CO2 level goes too high, people start to get tired and stop paying attention, and it's just not as healthy as a properly controlled outside air system. So that costs a little bit of extra money because that has to be done by your control system, and it modulates that outside air damper depending on a signal sent from a CO2 sensor. It tells that outside air damper how much to open and close, and it also saves energy. So you're paying a little more upfront to get this high-end CO2 sensing system incorporated into your outside air and into your control system. But it'll end up paying for itself because when those big occupancy rooms aren't fully occupied, that sensor tells your outside air damper to close down to its minimum. So you don't have to air condition all of that outside air. You don't need to bring in all that air when there's no people in the room. So, yeah, you're gonna pay a little more up front, but it'll end up paying for itself down the road. So it's a higher first cost, but overall life cycle of the building, it ends up being less cost. So that's the kind of things that we as engineers put into a building because its life cycle is better for the customer as opposed to first cost. We look at life cycle, the energy code requirements, and meeting occupancy comfort. That's our three main focuses.
This is clearly not your responsibility, but if we had had this document yesterday, I could have scanned out copies to everyone on the committee, and we could have a well-informed discussion. So I'll just ask, what's the bottom line?
All four
Estimate.
phases,
Yeah.
all four phases, I'm estimating at about 2.5 million. Now, there's a little bit of money in there for things we don't know about. On buildings such as this, during the study phase, I have to include a contingency in that total fee, that total cost. And the contingency is about 12 to 15% of that cost. So that's money that may not need to be spent, but we won't know until a contractor gets above the ceiling and starts finding things.
right.
What if he gets up there and finds a piece of ductwork that's broken? He can say, we need to fix that piece of duct. Okay, use that contingency money. Or piping, I can't see the inside of chill water piping. When he tears it apart to replace that unit, he may see some corroded pieces that need to be replaced. Okay, so that's what that contingency fee is for. Hopefully we won't have to use that. So that's probably what, $220,000 included in that 2.5 million that may not need to be spent. But I would rather err on the side of having enough money and you guys being happy saying, hey, we didn't spend all that money, than err on the side of being too low and then you coming back and smacking me across the face for saying, hey, your fee, you didn't tell us the right number. So I'm erring on the,
You did it the right way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Smart way to do it.
We're not unhappy with that. Question, the phases are every summer, when the people aren't here, when you finish one phase, you go to the next. How is, what's the the timing of this, I guess I should say.
That is determined by the owner, so you guys will determine
What I'm saying-
when-
And the money.
No, but I also need to say that, you can't you don't, you said that number one is, the phase one is the most important. But you don't wanna go, if you're looking and you're saying, well, I have a few extra time or little, and we have a little extra money, I'll do this part of it or something like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, if we finish phase one and it comes in under budget and you have a little extra money, you can say, well, I'd like to go ahead and take one of these air handlers that you recommend be replaced and have them do that too. And you can use that money and it'll take that cost out of the next phase.
Could you also kind of, I know this is, I'm not making, timing. How much time do you think something like this would take? I mean, now, you could go, if we had the money, you could go in tomorrow and then, start work.
Mhm.
But we don't have the money and you probably don't wanna start tomorrow, cause it's Saturday. And why would anybody wanna start a job on Saturday if you can't buy traffic? But if
Well, I
just,
get paid extra for working on Saturday.
oh, yeah.
I'll be here every Saturday.
And Sunday's double time, right? Is that it?
I think there's one situation here. Conversely, when you have the least amount of people here, you need the most amount of air conditioning. And when you don't need as much air conditioning in the winter, you have the greatest number of people, so.
But you have the highest amount of things like CO2 and because I mean, if the Bronx Wanderers are in the clubhouse, you can barely breathe. It's hot and close and very uncomfortable. And I can see, I never really thought about it, but all those people, if everybody would stop breathing, I could be really good. It would be good for me. It would be very helpful.
In the first phase, if you were to do the first phase, let's just take the first phase. How long, roughly, estimate, would it take you to do the first phase?
All things,
I'm
how
asking you.
disruptive.
no, but all
Yeah,
things
but
not,
that's what I'm getting to in the
Yeah.
second
Yeah.
part of the
The
question.
construction portion of it.
The construction portion, I do the design and then
Uh-huh.
it would go for permitting, and we would go
Right,
hire a
yeah.
contractor at that time. So my design would probably take about 2 months to do.
Okay,
After that, we could hire a contractor, get it through permitting with the city of West Palm Beach, and I would estimate that they would need about 90 to 120 days to do
let's
phase
go
one.
120, I see.
that's another,
Cause we have to try to figure out, I think, when that's gonna fall in place, when that construction's gonna be done.
Right.
And you don't have full force of your people here, you have to do it when you have less people here. The construction phase, not
You
your
can do it
phase so
anytime,
much.
anytime you
Okay, I'm
want,
just
we make
curious.
them work, they're,
I'm hearing an assumption here, which I haven't heard. Does the clubhouse have to be shut down
no.
for this? No.
but
walk
if you,
around.
but if you don't have,
Well,
But
if we
if-
normally
but if
do
you
it,
don't-
just to answer the
so
question,
there,
but basically it would be
nobody
done
will
in the
want it.
off-season, especially with the
Uh-huh.
party room.
That's what I
and the party
presume,
room.
right.
So you're not
April,
gonna
That's what I'm
close the party room when you have New Year's Eve, all that, so it would
That's what
definitely be
I'm-
done unfortunately in the summer, but then that particular room would be closed down for whatever that period of time.
particular room, whatever that air handler serves, that portion will be closed down. You'll notice, once you review this study, you'll see my cost estimates, one of the line items down at the end, it has an occupied building condition. And I believe that's
yeah,
5% or something like that. So you're paying 5% extra so a contractor can do this work while the building is occupied, that costs extra. If you were to come in and close that clubhouse for 9 months and they could do the entire 4 phases in 9 months, that would save you about $200,000. But we know you can't do that, the building has to be occupied. So there's a cost associated with contractors working around civilians, people, because they have to set up special safety barriers and do other things.
Even in the special room, Tim, like,
Everywhere.
if you closed out everywhere,
They have
as long
to-
as it's open, it's open.
As long as it's open, they have to do dust control, they have to do noise
Right.
control,
Sure.
they have to put safety barriers up, keep
I get
people
you,
out.
okay.
Alright, one at a time. David, did you have your hand? No. Anybody else have a question? I will after this meeting, I will scan this in. And I will send it out certainly immediately to all the members of the committee. And then you'll be able to come back and comment. What's the approximate cost for phase one?
$459,000.
458, 458.
Oh, 458.
Yeah,
58.
you can cough that up.
I hope so.
In
Drop
got
the
it.
bucket.
in your overall strategy, and I'm working for experience in a modern government building, they had sensors in every room. It's like a multi-zone system on steroids, literally. Every single room had a thermostat and these sensors you're talking about.
Right.
You could hear those ducts snapping open and shut as certain readings were being processed. Now, I'm sure federal government, they print money. But does any part of your design contemplate additional sensors? And you mentioned for the theater, but like for the other rooms?
The outside, the CO2 sensors and things like
And the
that.
temperature in particular,
Yes. Yes. Take,
And the
take the-
ducts can be adjusted to channel air where it's needed.
Yes. So take the large card rooms upstairs on the second floor. You have one very large card room and two smaller card rooms off to the side. The two smaller card rooms off to the side already have a VAV box, which is called a variable air volume box, and their own thermostats. Those two rooms are already individually controlled, so we're not messing with that. We're just gonna tie that into the new duct system. That can stay where it is. It's working fine. The large card room, on the other hand, does not have the VAV boxes. So one of the things we're recommending is to add 5 VAV boxes to that space, each with its own thermostat. And because the way the building is, or that room is broken up, there's a large heat load, sensible heat load from the outside wall and the glass. So that area is going to heat up more than, say, the interior space, where there's not so much sensible load from outside. It's more latent load from the people breathing, or that card room may not be full. There may not be 270 people in there. There may be 40 people over here and 60 people over here and no one back here. So if you get some individual control in those separate areas of that large card room, not only will the people be more comfortable, but it will again save more energy, because the areas that aren't fully occupied, those VAV boxes will close down and not put air into those areas because it doesn't need it. So then the air handler can then slow down. It doesn't have to work so hard.
Marcia?
Will that thermostat automatically do that to those areas, or will someone have to actually come in and have to move the different knobs or something to do that?
It's all automatic.
So those areas will be automatically happen.
Yes.
Areas.
The sensors do.
Control, the sensors will
That's
do that
what the
automatically.
temperature sensors do. And the thermostats. Now, what we usually do in a space like that is, see, all of that is controlled by your energy management system, which is all automatic. So Kevin, I can't think of his last name, he's your main maintenance guy. He's really good. He has a system on his laptop where you'll be able to open up the laptop and he'll set a temperature of what that space needs to be. It's all done on the computer, and that's what that sensor tells the air handler to do. Now, you can get thermostats, and since you're putting new thermostats in, this may be something you want to consider. You can get thermostats that are adjustable by users.
You'll have everybody going like this.
That won't work.
You can program a range into. So if it's set at, say, 72 degrees, you can program a range into that. It says you can adjust it 2 degrees below or 2 degrees above.
Something else for them to
So
break.
that they can go to 70 and 74, but
Given the propensity of some in our demographic, there would be fights over that.
There'd be a line where they're constantly changing.
or you could set it to
one person
0,
into
you
another.
can set the range to 0 and let them think they're doing
I
something.
would put such a thing in a cage.
They belong in the cage.
Dan?
Could you just explain to them on the ductwork and, ductwork, what we're
Someone's
keeping,
phone.
and explain to them the fiberglass that we have, and, cause there was some question of changing
Somebody's
to
phone ringing.
metal ductwork or,
Okay.
If you could just please, I know it's in the report, but just to give them, because I know we've talked about ductwork and I think it's good for them to know.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to look at, because I've been out here before and I've noticed that you've got fiberboard ductwork, so it's not metal, it's not sheet metal. Normally, a commercial building such as this would have sheet metal ductwork that's externally insulated. So I was a little concerned with that going in when I started my field investigations out here, but my concerns kind of got alleviated a little bit, if you might. When I saw it is a commercial grade ductboard, so it's 1.5 inches thick. The cheaper ductboard is only 1 inch thick. It does have an internal microbial liner, which is a good quality liner that keeps the fiber particles from being blown down the ductwork. So you have a good quality commercial grade fiberboard duct system. It was constructed pretty well. It's in good shape. Whoever did the construction knew what they were doing. They did a good job on it. So I didn't recommend replacing any of that ductwork because it's still in good shape. It's doing its job. The only time we would want to replace some of that ductwork is if it's not sized properly for the new air quantities that need to happen in those spaces. Otherwise, we want to leave as much of that in place as possible.
So that was a big, question and cost wise, and but just to further to the pressures, because everybody was saying pressures, but the VAVs and the frequency drives, could you just explain how that's so that it doesn't blow them out or, fiberglass compared to metal?
VAV systems, variable air volume systems, generally like to have a higher pressure inside the ductwork because the VAV boxes work better under a little bit of a higher pressure. And downstream of the VAV box, it goes back to low pressure so we don't create noise. So we would have to determine a happy medium on the pressure that we make this upstream ductwork designed to. We wouldn't want to go too high because it could start to blow apart the joints of the ductwork. But too low, now your VAV boxes start to hunt. They don't know to open or close. They start moving back and forth. So there's a happy medium somewhere in there that we'll have to find during the design to make sure we properly use that fiberboard ductwork.
Louise,
Yeah, let's just say hypothetically, we take this 2.5 million and we vote to do it over a 5-year period, 500,000 a year. What are the chances, knowing the history that you know of cost increases, what are the chances that 500,000 by year 5 could be 600,000
You'll see
or
also
550?
in my study, in the cost estimates, I also have a line item down at the end that says escalation. I have 3% escalation built in to each phase. And I think I went up to 2 years. So there is some escalation costs already in there,
So it's built in.
So it could be
yes,
3% per year on that,
yes.
that last 5, so
But that's only for 2 years, he said.
it's only for
It's not for 5 years like
Okay.
you brought up.
Okay.
That's unrealistic at 3%.
So if you go to 5 years, your escalation increases a little bit. And there's things that are hard for me to estimate, like the tariffs. The
Right.
tariff costs that came
Aluminum.
in. Some of the metal and other items, air handlers, there's a tariff increase that caused those prices to increase. I've included that in my cost because I know what the tariff increases are now, but I don't know what they're gonna be 2 years from now.
Anything else you wanted to bring up?
I think the report really is a good thing to look at, give you a good idea exactly, because he did a very good job in analyzing
like
every single
yeah.
one,
it's just, I would really like everyone to get a chance to read the big report.
Just to let you know, we just did this, what day was it?
Monday.
Monday. And the reason that we didn't hand it out is one, I had to read it over, making sure, and we went back and forth on some of the stuff, so for correction, so we apologize, but we needed to get this for the board to get through here, or I would have handed that out, but I didn't wanna give you any information that was not, 100%
I
clear.
understand, but when our people read it over the next week, and then there are gonna be more questions and the
Yes.
engineer isn't gonna be there to answer them.
No, we will,
We can have them come back.
Okay, Cause we're gonna have another meeting on the
Yeah.
budget.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Cause I think after you read this document, I mean, it's 2 inches thick, you're gonna come up with a lot of questions.
And here's something that you might wanna think about. There are some technical things in there, like my cooling load calculations and outdoor air zone calcs. And so I'm gonna throw Dom under the bus here, because he kinda knows, he's familiar with those items. And so direct all your questions to Dom.
We got your number, Dom, we got your number.
I don't think we'll have
He
any-
works on
any
Sundays
trouble.
for overtime.
I don't think we'll have any trouble with the arithmetic. You read the book and you have the internet there. Some of us can do arithmetic.
I have
Stu.
a question, are the parts that are going to be replaced readily available, or are they have to, because they're old, have to be custom made, which would accelerate, that is, increase the cost?
No,
Or are they
every-
in a ready market?
Yes, everything that needs to be replaced is readily available. The air handling units that need to be replaced, you have to order those because they're not off-the-shelf items. So if you're going to replace an air handler, like the 2 air handlers behind the conference room upstairs on the 2nd floor, they need to be replaced. You have to get with Train or Carrier, whoever you want to buy your new equipment from, and tell them this is what this air handler needs to be built to. And then they build it to those specifications. That takes about 8 to 10 weeks from the time they get a purchase order to the time it's delivered to the site. So you need to plan, the contractor needs to plan ahead that it takes 10 weeks to get that equipment delivered to the site. Everything else is all readily available at construction stores.
Louise,
I've been in meetings where everybody starts to yawn. Is that an indication of a high CO2 level?
It's one of the indications, yes, definitely.
you haven't seen it.
It happens a lot, it happens in conference rooms, it happens in classrooms.
Tony,
This looks like a lot of work. Are we going to have somebody like you or you to supervise the contractors?
Just like the last time, we will have the same thing.
Like the same way we did the
Yep,
roads,
same way.
you know,
Yep,
we
yep,
know
no, well,
how
this
well
was
that-
like we did the cooling towers, so
towers.
they were involved,
Yeah.
they were
So
involved.
you will have somebody who's gonna be the boss of the contractors to make sure that they're following your rule?
It's gonna be
your-
Dan.
We're gonna oversee, the engineering department is going to be hand to hand, okay, with us, working with the contractors, so that if they have a question or a change,
Okay,
they have
you'll
to
be
go to the
there.
engineering
it's
firm.
online.
I'll be available.
Available.
I won't be on site every day.
There's a cost that
Oh,
we
no,
put
no,
in
no,
here
yeah.
for the engineering fee, and then when we're ready to do construction, they will give us a cost, what it's gonna take for them to be present, okay? We could break it down how we wanna use them,
Gonna save
but it's just the same way that we did the last time, so, yes, with this type of a job.
Yeah, I was gonna say, who would know?
Just to let you know too, is that one thing is that, I just lost my train of thought. I was going back and forth.
Take a sip of coffee, it's that CO2.
It's the CO2.
Alright,
Yeah.
hold on, folks, I'm pleasantly surprised and informed that at this big study, there's a link, the engineer sent us a link, and I will send a link out to you.
Oh, good.
It's all computerized, so I can put it directly in the database and send you all the link.
You mean I can't get a piece of paper?
You want a piece of paper.
Yeah.
You'll give me 100
One of
pieces
his
of
areas
paper.
of
You
expertise
see
is
the size
sensors.
of the document?
Yeah.
But yes, I understand, some folks like to turn the page, I appreciate that. That's why we have a nice husky work group print,
No
print
comment.
away.
But just, I just remember, just to answer the question, yes, the engineering will be beside us working on something like this. The thought that I
Is
have
the
had,
price in
he
here?
brought up, this will all come in stages, like, we'll, when we get to that phase of it, we'll let you, we'll all be, in touch. We gotta get to the next phase, which he has to do design, okay, of this, so that will be the design. This was a study, and next is the design, okay, and then when we do sign the contractual agreement, then there will be an oversight of the project, okay?
An
So,
oversight.
Yes, typically during construction, the owner would hire us to come out and inspect all of the work as the contractor progresses, week
Each
by
step,
week.
yeah.
And we'll write a report, and anything that we find that doesn't meet our requirements of our design, they have to fix or
Right.
replace.
That's what we need,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, one thing that I learned from him too, which it's always good, you always learn, things, but the air handlers too, he's going to recommend, okay? Might be a little bit different than what we are buying, but the life expectancies might be longer and also a lot better in health with the way the insulation lining is or something you were mentioning.
Right.
Okay, so just to let you know, it was a very good, again, the study, when you read through there, go through the stuff that he's actually recommended and looked over, was very informational for me also,
You have some pressurization problems in the building. And that is due to not a lot of return ductwork, there's a lot of plenum returns, which the air handlers just draw the air back from wherever it can get it. So one of your problems, especially in the lobby area, is every time those doors open in the lobby, and they open a lot, every time those doors open, dollar bills are flying right out that door. Untreated air is being sucked into the building through those doors. So you have to bring that outside air in anyway, whether it's through a duct or through the front doors. But when you bring it through the front doors, it comes in hot and humid. When you bring it through a duct, we make it go through a cooling coil first, so it doesn't heat the space up. Either way, that building's under negative pressure. Either way, the laws of physics tell you the building has to pressurize. It has to be equal pressure. So it's going to draw in that outside air one way or another through a duct or through a door or through a window. And you want it to come through a duct.
Didn't you say, Tim, that the phase 2 was the most important of the 4 phases as far as balancing the building?
Yes.
Yeah.
Phase 2 has the most problems as far as pressurizations go.
Can see by the price.
Phase 1 has, we chose that as phase 1 to try and get rid of a lot of complaints. I know there are some complaints in the party rooms and it needs some help, the party room.
Yeah, it does.
Lady behind you?
Yes.
So basically, you're saying that possibly we should not have those automatic doors. Maybe those automatic doors should be replaced, since they're constantly opening, because people go near them, they open even when people are not going out or in. So maybe we should really think about replacing those doors.
No, I wouldn't worry about that yet.
Too
Like
many
I said,
handicapped people.
the air has to come in one way or another. So it's not just those automatic doors, it's the doors beside them. It could be doors in a stairwell that's connected to a
Someplace
corridor.
else,
Any door that opens into that building from the outside is going to allow the building to pressurize.
I have a question on the doors. I understand what you're saying, that any door. But if you had the front door or the 2 side doors on the building, you know where I mean, by the bus on the other end, and they were left open, say for an hour or 2, would that be very bad to do?
Mhm.
Okay, I just wanted to get that clarified at the table, because we do that, and I don't think it's a good idea. But you're the engineer, so I'm asking you. Okay.
That's the same way that we don't allow, because the individual unit that controls a room or something, we don't allow the doors to open into the hallway.
Of course.
Not only is that a fire code, but it's also
But-
throws
yeah.
off our building.
But at showtime, okay,
Side
the
doors.
side doors and the front door are kept open. And I never thought that was a good idea, but that's not my call. Now I'm asking the man who has the know-how if that's a good idea or not, so maybe we have to think about that.
I don't think it's a good idea,
So
but
keep it open constant,
once the building is pressurized properly,
then you're
it's
okay.
we want it to be positively pressurized by just a little bit, all the time. So that when you open an outside door, a little bit of air goes out
Yeah,
instead of air coming in.
it's not gonna be so
So,
drastic.
once the building is pressurized properly, leaving a door open won't be so detrimental to
After all
your,
these phases you're talking about,
Yeah,
am I right?
because
Okay.
the building's going to be pressurized. But that still won't stop a wind, so if you open a door and there's wind blowing, it's going to overcome the pressure of your building and allow hot air in. But on a normal day, you'll be okay to leave the doors open for 20 minutes or so.
Okay.
I've had this lecture
It's hard
on
in here right now.
air conditioning and building pressurization just recently. I have a much simpler example of the problem right out here in a 500 square foot guard shack. And normally I might put a 1-ton unit in there, but the air conditioning guy is saying, well, the door's open virtually all the time. The guard has got the door open. And he gave me this very interesting explanation of the pressurization issue. Is there any, in a building the size of the clubhouse, is there any technical countermeasure? I mean, I don't know what it would be unless it would sense a pressure drop and turn airflow off momentarily or something like that.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, there are ways that you could make the air handlers do certain things as far as bringing in more outside air when it senses a lower pressure. But usually those, in a building like this, that differential in pressure isn't a long enough period of time
Right.
for it to
Okay.
operate properly.
One more question, maybe because you're the expert and we got you here on the hot seat, so. Our guard shed outside is approximately 400 square feet, I think, right, Ed?
Yeah.
And it has high ceilings, and the door is open constantly on the one side all day. So they said we should be using a 2-ton air conditioner, am I right?
Or what?
That's what we did, that's what we
Instead
just
of
put in.
1 ton.
Yeah.
Oh, you put it in already, oh, well,
We've
that
gone to
shoots
2-ton,
that
yes.
question.
It was quick.
Yeah, I didn't know they put it in.
I was immediately concerned with cycling, but when it was pointed out to me that the damn door is kept open almost all the time, what are you gonna do?
So does that help getting a larger unit? Or not?
It gives you more air conditioning in the
Would there have
space,
been
more
another
air.
way to have handled that?
But I doubt very seriously if that unit draws in any outside air.
That's what I'm
It's
talking
probably
about.
all research, like your system at
Research,
home.
yeah, of course,
There
okay.
is no outside air
There's no
coming into
damp or
into
nothing that
it.
would soothe them.
So you can't pressurize the building, all you can do is blow more air.
It's a
Thank
big
you.
fan.
It's like your unit at home, it doesn't
Same.
pressurize your home.
Yes.
It doesn't draw in any outside air, all it does is it supplies 100 CFM and it returns 100 CFM, there's no difference there.
Round and round, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, great. I mean,
Do you do your reading here and then we'll come back?
of course we're gonna read it. And maybe we'd be prepared to decide on where we wanna go. I almost heard the suggestion, maybe we ought to do phase 2 before phase 1, but maybe I misheard that. And.
Depends on how much money you're gonna raise.
Well,
It's
and
a million
after,
too.
look, I just want everybody to read this, myself included. Bring back all the technical questions or whatever you're gonna have. And we have time, because we'll have another phase, we're gonna have another meeting here.
Sure.
And, yeah, it's great.
Is there a plan to do any of this work? It's a huge budget.
It's up to us.
You're gonna choose.
You know, she made a comment here, 500, whatever. Like you said, even in phase 2, he said if you wanted to do 500,000, again, you don't have to do the whole 1 million. You can break this all up. So it's all up to you and how you wanna spend the money, and again, we brought up the phase 1 because of the problems being the party room and the card rooms getting so many complaints all the time, okay? But you're right, what he brought up here, saying balancing of the building with mine that broke up is the most important phase to balance and pressurize the building.
It's also your most expensive phase, but it is the most important.
It's up to you.
But just be advised, just doing phase 2 doesn't fix the entire balancing thing. There's balancing work that has to take place in all four things.
All 4 phases, okay.
Yeah,
So it doesn't matter where you start, really.
bottom line is, but
You have to do them all, that's
how
the
long
bottom
can you
line.
put it off if you're gonna, cause every year it's gonna cost more and more. And it'll be a project that just, how long can you keep it up?
You have to get the
So
money.
you give us enough money to pay for it.
Yeah,
No,
that's
look
what I
at me,
told
you're
them,
the
brought it up.
treasurer, I'm just a wimp over here.
Print money?
This is the downside, and none of us in here are forgetting. the endless trail going back years of money we have thrown at the air conditioning system.
Yeah, that's right.
We
I mean,
have
if
to
we-
start
if we
to
went
fix it.
back-
Exactly,
That
and
is-
that's not gonna stop.
This is in addition
It's just
to,
more organized and in a certain direction, kind of clear direction.
I look at this kind of stuff as an investment in your building.
That's what it is, only
I
it's on
wouldn't-
our building.
It's not our building, no.
I agree with
We're
you,
paying
you're
for
right,
it,
Tim.
but it's not our building.
It's
So
an
it's an
expense,
investment
but it's
in
an
their
investment.
building. Thank you very much.
It's not ours.
Not ours
It's
either.
not ours.
Well, it's Benison
But
Company,
it's a
sorry.
cost, but
You
it's,
get
but it's a
paid.
cost savings to
We
you by doing what he's suggesting. That's the other thing, because of the maintenance agreement you have with it, it's also gonna save you money if you do it
Well, we
certain ways.
keep throwing money into it and it's a
Eventually,
waste
you're
too.
going to have to replace all these units anyway. They all go bad after a certain amount of time, so
It's
you're
only a
going
matter
to
of
spend the
time.
money anyway, maybe over 10 years instead of
If you
5.
knew the bills.
But you're not going to get the energy savings by replacing them one at a time. When one breaks,
Right.
you
Oh,
put it
that's
in.
right.
Remember 2000,
And that comes with
just
the
to-
energy.
Just so Tim, just to make them aware, because they realizing the expense they're saying here, but we put this in 2005. So how many years has that been now? It's at 13 years, okay? Life expectancies of the air handlers,
Inside units is 20 years.
okay? So we're more than
Now,
half
Kevin-
already.
Kevin's
So
done
we
a
gotta
good job.
project that in the
So-
future.
That's what we, remember the projection about thinking about head?
Mhm.
You got 7 more years and you're already gotten units, okay, that were put in 2005, that was 3, I think 4 of them, that are over.
But you're gonna have to anticipate that
Well, you'll
money.
read the report, I'm telling you, he's got it all broken
Okay.
down, exactly the age and what the
That's good.
things and all, so. It's a really good report.
Do we have too high a volume of people coming and going to put in a glass enclosure with an air curtain? So that they come in the outer door and be in
Yeah,
an
then it would-
enclosed chamber with air crashing down and then opening, and that might maintain the positive air pressure inside the building.
That would definitely help on the positive air pressure.
Yeah.
As far as the people coming and going, I can't answer that. But, when you go into a bank or a large government building, a lot of times they have the separate vestibule that you enter first. And that only lets a little bit of air out, whatever's in that vestibule, instead of a bunch of air.
But I can see people with walkers and whatever creating a
Trouble,
Yeah.
that's trouble.
backlog.
And once you get this pressurized, you do all these phases, that will be helping because the dampers will work, everything will work, right? So that shouldn't be a big problem like it is now.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
As long as
We
it's
gotta read the
maintained.
report.
As long as it's maintained.
Maintain, that's everything.
You have to have a good maintenance crew, and you have a good guy there right now. Kevin knows what he's doing.
Oh, Kevin's a good guy.
Dominic's
doesn't have to
comment,
be
I
done.
think, is very interesting one. Because I just remember as a kid, all of the single family homes, you would walk in a door, but you were in a little
Vestibule,
vestibule,
they
little
call it.
vestibule. There was radiator over there, and there
Right.
was an inner door, and you didn't get this great rush.
Right.
You moved a little bit of air.
The wind blows in, it stops right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a neat idea.
Not for
It
us
was
though.
on page 2, I believe.
Not for us.
Or we could get the blower and everything blows when
That's not gonna be good for us, for our clientele.
Not with
believe me.
wheelchairs and wheelchairs.
I mean, you see an example right here at the bank.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Doors open,
Yeah.
you're in a little area.
But they don't have the traffic that we have in that clubhouse. We have such a tremendous amount of traffic. It's, you have no idea. Sit there for one day and see in and out, in and out.
The problem that you have is that we have the ADA, so even if we have the doors that you push the button, they stay open for a period of time before they close down.
Absolutely.
And by the time they get to the inside, it's already, if they're automatic again, they're gonna be staying open,
That's right.
inside there for the
That
ADA, but
presents a problem.
it'll help, but like you said, if he balances the building properly, I think that we will take care of
That's what,
a
you
lot of
gotta
it.
get it all
It's gonna
done.
bring up.
Alright, Stuart,
No, it's talking done.
you got anything
That's not
else
for me.
on this AC thing?
Yeah, I'll pass it down.
Or shall we move along?
I have.
Thank you very much.
Tim, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
We'll let you know when we're
I'm
meeting
sure we'll
again.
appreciate more when we see the report again.
Thank you for showing and
Remember,
Thanks a
go to
lot.
Dom.
Oh,
Go to Dom, yeah. Well, we got your number already.
Yeah. Thanks.
We got 10 minutes and then we got Derek.
No, I'm good, thank you, that would be something.
Thank you, Dan.
No, I
We'll
would
let you
like
know in plenty of
Yeah,
time when the
I'd like to see that happen.
You wanna continue, or you got somebody,
Well, we got 10 minutes.
Derek's supposed to be here at 11, so we could.
I
We
forgot.
have 10 minutes.
Okay,
the
let's
van
go.
still ready?
I'll run.
That's presuming he's on time.
That's true.
He could be 5 minutes late.
I don't think we should rush through this. They wanna rush.
Have a napkin.
Well, just I'm just gonna start, if I can get somewhere, great, if not, I'll send it.
Yeah, let's get out of here as soon as we can, right?
Quiet.
Run before we get you.
Abby is going
Thank you,
to
hon.
perform.
My line items are pretty self-explanatory, number 10, which you approved last March when we went to press with the season brochure. This is the income side. I'm projecting to bring in 300.
What number, I'm sorry, 10, thank
Line
you.
10 on page 1.
Thank you.
They're all pretty standard, there's nothing out of line from the previous year to really speak of. So my line items on the first page are 10, 11, and 13. If you go to page 3, number 42, we will go through that.
Stuart,
We will go through that at the end.
Is that it? Sorry.
If you go to page 5, the only line items 64 and 65. The only real difference is that I am requesting to bring my assistant Kitty to a conference this year. I'm aging, as you all know, and I think it's in, for the $750 that I'm asking, I think it's in everybody's best interest that Kitty, obviously she knows a lot, she's been with us over 30 years, but I think she should meet a lot of the people in person, and this year it's in Orlando, so there's no huge expense, you know, for flights or anything like that, so that's the only thing. You can see meals, hospitality and things like that change based upon the performers, so we're down a little for next year. On page 6, the theater costs, again, you approved that in March, same thing for the dance, there's no significant increase, same thing for the movies. Other social activities remain the same. There are no gate receipt expenses. Page 7, entertainment publications, the only thing that changed there are the pole banners that we are going to have delivered in October. We're going to hopefully wait and see where the hurricanes are at before we install them. But they won't be billed, the printer was very nice and is not billing us till the next fiscal year, because that was something we decided after the fact. Master of Ceremonies, JM, as you know, is going to become a full-time employee, so that money becomes a wash and is in $7,200 of his salary will be charged to wherever Monica and Eva are charging it. Entertainment. Line item 102, miscellaneous entertainments is the conferences that I attend, you know, and professional fees that I have to belong to certain organizations. Page number, Exhibit A. This year Monica broke out things that normally, I don't think we normally put in here, but you see everything here, that's the bottom line. I've talked and talked and talked, we have to get a new console, because ultimately, it's not $92,000, but if you take the 3 big items that we have here, ultimately, you potentially are gonna lose shows, cause they're going down. We have not replaced this console, it's way out of date, we cannot handle the quality of the performers, the needs of the performers. I have spoke till I'm blue in the face, I have bought you cake, I am begging and pleading for side fills, so we never have this conversation again. The floor, and I don't know, Dan, maybe you can, is some of the floor problems due to the air conditioning situation?
We found out that basically it's a moisture problem underneath the cement that's underneath there.
Okay.
So the repair that we're gonna be doing is gonna try to,
I,
replacing the 5/8 marine board that's underneath there where it's the plastic's on top. and then putting a coating or something to keep the moisture from coming through.
It's very
Yes.
dangerous, it's very
Yes. So
dangerous backstage.
We have that, I think, in the
tripping.
budget for some
Yeah,
repairs.
we have $15,000 to repair and partially replace it. That's a life and safety issue. The other things are minor expenses, projector lamp, things that we always ask for. So I hope that you will give serious consideration. And then you probably will get a reprieve and won't hear from me too much next year. But these three top items, as we've discussed.
When I'm up there, I don't know about the other officers, say at the delegate assembly. I have a lot of problems hearing the speakers.
The monitors.
On the mics. Will these side fill speakers
Yes.
help out with that?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So I'm pleading my case here. Barbara had asked me to go over some numbers. These are non-audited numbers because I only have the financials through July, but I wanted to bring you to date. Okay? So again, these have not been approved by Monica. These are only what are coming out through Vindini, the ticket system. We had, and I'm strictly talking this fiscal year that ends October, began last November and ends this October. We had a budget of $323,000 for the theater expense. We have brought in to date $314,000, which would show a negative of $9,261, but this is only audited until July. Okay? But we are over budget, if you will, on what I projected. So let's safely assume, happily assume, that we potentially could have $3,000 for August, September, and October. We will hopefully break even. My idea of break even is very different because it's something from Peggy Jackson days called WAG, which is Wild Ass Guess. I can't guess in July, when you ask for my budgets, I can't tell you what the weather's gonna be like, how the hurricanes are gonna affect us. I can't create that magic. So I can only do my best. So to me, my best is a $5,000 variance on a $300 and something thousand budget of income. Or even 3,000, 1%, a 2% variance. I am hopeful that we will come as close to breaking even as possible. On a very positive note, for the current season that we're about to go in November through March, your sales so far are $141,164. Last year this is as of yesterday, last year on that date, you only had $116,000 in the bank. So you are close to 30,000, 20 ahead of the game right now. We are hoping that there is a new look to Vindini. If you buy online, I think it started last week when we were up here. We had to do some things with Rose and teach her. We feel that it's a lot easier. We think it's visually nicer. We have not heard one complaint about, buying online, except for the very first day. We heard a few complaints, but we have not gotten any. Most of the complaints were user errors, specifically American Express. We advertise everywhere. We don't take American Express, but people don't read and they want to use American Express. And it times out. Just like when you go to your bank and you do your banking online, you go to the airlines, it times out because if they're holding a seat and they hold it for more than 8 minutes and you want to buy that seat, so there's nothing we can change. We can't make the changes that the people that we've heard that they would like to hear. So I think we're sitting in a very good position for next season. I do not think that we're sitting in a bad position. Our goal here has always been to break even. Again, my concept of break even and your break even, I know what break even means, but it's really hard to get to that penny. And I'm hoping that it's a 1 or 2% variance, if there is.
And based upon your 7,000, I forget from village to village.
7,854.
Right, and if you potentially lose $3,000, it's a very minimal. Next summer, just to remind you, we all approved, and it has proven to work in Pembroke Pines. Buy 3 tickets in 1 month, get the 4th free. So it's taking baby steps towards getting better attendance. I know there's some people that have concerns about how minimal the attendance is in the summertime. It's not fair for the performers. Rest assured, the performers do not complain. I apologize, Eva, I forgot to tell you this. One of the suggestions we were gonna ask is that the ushers encourage people to all sit down front. You know,
They won't do it.
well,
Well, unless you close the balcony.
They won't even
Right.
do it to delegates assembly, they're not
They
gonna
won't
do
do
it.
it.
Close the
We've had
balcony.
that discussion and they ask, but they like the
Can't make-
first
you
one,
can't make
balcony or whatever, you can't make them.
you can't make them so.
Some absolutely refuse to do it.
But I think that
That's the
before we do anything drastic, like, you know, saying, oh, we're gonna only have 1 summer show a month, and that's just a hypothetical example. I think that we should, which we all agreed that we're gonna do this buy 3, get 1 free for the summer. And if there's 5 Saturdays, you're still only getting 1 free. We also, there's nothing else. Do we charge guest fee here in the summer?
Yes.
Yes.
You always.
That was another one of my suggestions. In the summertime, perhaps consider not charging guest pass fee, not charging the $3. Just a suggestion, you can all take it up, but maybe, you know, people would bring other people in. I can tell you that the attendance in Pembroke Pines is obscenely ridiculous. It is far surpasses Boca, and people go for this buy 3, get 1 free, and do they all come? Nope, they don't. But they buy them, they give them to their neighbors, they don't show up, they say for $15 for the month. You know, it doesn't pay not to buy it, and I'll go if I wanna go. You know, it forces advanced sales potentially.
Aren't they taking a loss at Pembroke Farm?
Pembroke takes a loss, but Pembroke also charges in the season only $5 a ticket. And they have a totally different attitude. Their attitude is, we would rather see the theater filled at $5.
Is the theater filled?
No, what
I don't think
here's,
so.
but here's,
No.
Not in
here's,
season.
here's what, in summer, yes, not in season.
Summer it is.
Here's what happens in the season.
Crazy.
They charge, you have to purchase 30 tickets. At 30 tickets at $5 a ticket, so your minimum purchase must be $150.
But that's what most people would spend at least that amount.
Right.
Even with us at $10, you most,
But
you
they're
know.
getting 30 shows, so what they do is they pick the
Do they
show.
go to the shows though?
There is a certain contingency of people that go to every single show down there, but yes, they buy them just for the sake of buying them.
That's what I'm saying, you know, they're,
You know.
What you're doing next April, the 3 for 4, we already voted that in. And what you've already scheduled and booked is for 19 and the beginning of 20, am I correct or not?
I am actually leaving on the 1st of October for the first conference. For
For-
1920, for November of 19 through,
That's what I'm talking about, November of 19 to
right.
the following year of
And what
20.
I have projected, not financially, but projected number of shows, because when I go to a conference, I plan out the season based on the days of the week that we wanna book. And I have 43 or 44 shows this year, I have 39 projected for next year.
Why?
Because I'm finding that at the end of March, people are tired. They're tired of going to the theater. They're tired of, you know, seeing the same people. So I'm kind of scaling it back a little bit in March and, you know, taking it a little away. And also sometimes the way it falls out, like where a New Year's Eve show comes out on a Monday, I have to have an extra show where, you know, it depends, sometimes the Jewish holidays, sometimes, so it's just.
have you given any thought to like 2 times a week? I don't mean it in a bad way. All I'm saying is, if there's less of, then it's more desirable sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
The only time that we have more shows is January, February, March. In November and December, we only have Saturday
But
nights.
I gotta be honest with
Which
you.
is trippy.
This is like working in a slave market for 4 hours. By the time I get home, I mean, I'm tired, folks. You gotta be tired. Well, you know, you don't pay me shit.
We can. I didn't know you were fond of it. I'll get you a box.
You know what all I'm saying to you is, no, you know, look, like all of us, we deal with the public and it's wearing sometimes. And sometimes when I get home, I don't care. It could be one of my favorite, like, there was that comedian I really love, the Jewish.
Sarge?
No.
Freddie
What
Roman?
Lane
Freddie Roman?
Lane Boozler. You get tired, you know what I'm saying? All I'm saying is, I find it hard to believe that we're really gonna be able to fill the seats. I would rather see us make a profit.
But you're not gonna make a profit if you have less shows either.
Yeah, but what would I be paying
But
for
you're not,
shows
you're
I'm
not,
getting?
you're not losing money. I mean,
I'm not losing money this year, because you're gonna be tossing in the weekend. I promise you, I think if you keep up the way you're going, you will lose, because you'll notice year by year, you're losing a little bit more money. I don't mean it in a bad way, and I don't think it's because of, but you can't think of Boca and us, because I don't think we have the same type of people.
We don't.
You know what I'm saying?
There's no question
You know,
about that.
I mean,
But you
you know.
can't just have shows on Saturday nights because you will
I'm
not
not
get
just-
any name shows.
First
But
of
I'm
all,
not-
like the Bronx Wanderers, for instance, they're not coming on a Saturday night because they're not available on a Saturday night. They're only available during the week. Tony Orlando's not coming on a Saturday night because he's only available during the week. Personally, I, who go to at least 20 to 30 shows a year,
But
I would be very unhappy with only Saturday nights.
But Joyce, you are, you
Hold on,
and
folks.
Barbara.
Marcia's been waiting.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Curious, Abby, how come we don't get any more foreign films?
Wow.
We've,
Oh, that's
We've gone through that
previous.
before.
we've been through this a million
Yeah.
times and
We can't read that
What is
fast
the
at our
answer?
age.
the answer is that we can't get them. We can't get the good ones that you want. And we cannot get them in our $500. They're not well attended. They're complained about constantly when we did them. Listen, I don't care what not that I don't care. To me, it's the same thing. I could book a foreign film, I could book an old film, I could book a new film. All we hear is we want the new stuff, so we give you
That's
what
what
you
they
want.
want, that's the need
Yeah.
and the want.
Yeah, you see, that's why I'm saying, you know,
Let me get away from this. I wanna get away from Abby for a while, but I wanna get to this budget. I only wanna say one thing, she's going in October. My biggest thing is I've had people come up to me during the summer. And they said they'll sign a paper. They're uncomfortable, you were at the theater before, you know what it's like, 1,200 seats and 100 people. They're scattered all over, it's disgusting.
It is.
Now, I'm not saying you should take away, because we always have a problem when you take away, like you said. But I don't think we need a show every week. I think every other week during the summer, and to fill in between, play a movie on a Saturday night. We're paying the 500 anyway, so what's the difference with one more movie night? That's something that I think, I don't wanna discuss now, I think you should have a meeting before you go away with this committee.
Well, the summer programming is not what I'm going to.
I was gonna say.
Oh, okay,
Not
good.
big into
I'm
it.
glad you're telling me that, okay.
So whenever you have your next meeting, when the budget is done, this is something that we can readdress.
Okay, so we know we're in the right
It's
time
not-
element.
Good idea. That's a good idea.
You know, you're gonna get your complaints,
Okay,
Naturally.
and you may have to retract it.
doubt it.
because
No,
I talked
not
to so
for
many
movie.
people in the summer,
There's always
believe
gonna be
me.
complaints, no matter what we do.
But can we get back to this budget for a minute?
Do you have
Your
any
budget.
questions on
I
it?
do, where it says cover for JM, $1,000.
What number are you at, Barbara?
We're just,
Number 9 and Exhibit A.
people get sick, you know, something happens. PGJM the other day had shingles, you know, we had to, right. So, you know, for $1,000, we're just we're just covering ourselves.
That's, Barbara, that's your salary when you
Yeah,
take over
okay.
for Jan.
James Michael, the MC.
So we better look at this Exhibit A, people, because Abby's presenting it, so
Yeah,
let's look
it's
at
A.
it.
We've gone,
And
I
tell
have
me
all
what
the
you want and
specifics.
don't want.
If there's
One
any
to- it's-
technical questions you have,
1, 2, and 3, I think
1,
we've
2, and
already,
3.
We
we've
did.
already slugged 1, 2,
We
and
did,
3.
we have, and I,
So we already know that.
okay, great. And the other, you know, insignificant things that have to be, we have to replace the light and so forth and so on.
Bottom line is whether we approve it or not, you're gonna still have to buy the bulbs.
Exactly.
So frankly, she's gonna take it from someplace else, folks.
Anything else, anybody has any questions for me?
One question, piano tuning, is that done in the theater once a week?
Not
During,
necess-
during season, no?
Not necessarily, it's based on the performer
Okay.
and their technical writers and what we agree to.
Okay, now let's take away the theater. You have nothing to do, or is that just you,
That's-
with the tuning in the classrooms?
Correct, and we cut that down significantly several years back.
Okay, cause I've been checking the bills, that's why I'm asking,
Yes, to the
okay.
tune of thousands.
It should be cut down because it's not being used as much. I know it's a small amount, but small amounts get the big amounts. Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
Director's chairs.
So are
Questions,
we
if you
okay
want.
with approving the 92,000?
It's up to the
It's a lot of money.
But it's necessary. That's my opinion.
Snap at me.
I don't need
discuss marketing for the shows.
No, no, I know we already did the first one. We talked about that one
We first
before.
talked
they're
about
gonna
the
do, but
first
we also
two,
have to
first,
Okay.
two,
Yeah,
one
the
and, one and three.
Console and the speakers.
Correct, one and three we had already spoken about.
Yeah.
But it is bad backstage and we are concerned about the
flooring
safety.
is very important.
And it's, you gotta remember, it's
The
dark.
officers up there, we don't,
It's
you
dark.
could lose a few of those.
What are you talking about, the side
No, the
speakers?
performer.
The floor.
performance.
The floors is almost a necessity. Someone can get hurt.
Why? Because
I'm
it's you.
sorry.
No, the performers in the wings and it's dark when,
Well, it just gotta have something. It's gotta be fixed.
Right.
But my big thing is those side speakers. That's another 15,000 you better think about spending. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying, think about it, ladies. This is only the beginning of your budget.
But as David said, even when he's up on the stage, he has
He
difficulty.
needs a hearing aid.
we're not asking for the purpose of Utah being on stage.
Thank you.
I know
That's
that.
what I'm trying to
No, I'm
tell.
just saying,
We're,
but
we're saying,
that's in addition to the performance. I'm
Correct.
I
saying.
hear fine up there.
correct.
And
But
I'm
the
up
per-
there.
I
But
think
Barbara,
it's-
you're not up there with a 6 or 7 piece band.
Exactly.
No,
Make it
no,
in
I'm
line.
just saying,
So
what-
I mentioned something
our-
stupid, okay.
That's stupid,
Well,
nothing
you know,
stupid.
I just.
What would you be willing
On
to
this
do for us,
particular-
for this
I
night?
brought you cake, next meeting
Let's make a deal. I'm serious. I'm
14,000
serious.
expensive cake.
No, 14, my God, it's almost 90,000.
For
No,
the
what are
seven-
you gonna do?
For the 7 years I've been here and the budgets I've sat through, this has been the item that has recurred because you always set it aside. I think there comes a point when you need to say,
You're running out of
let's
time.
just get it
folks.
out of the way.
So then you
Yeah,
just
like
approve it.
So
That's
I'll
what I'm
tell you
saying.
what, you pay the 90 grand.
For what?
It'll take out of your budget, whatever,
They don't go to
we
the
take the
music, they
90
don't
out of
pay.
you. It's true. You better be.
You gotta just do it. You don't have much of a choice.
No,
So you can kill something somewhere.
What are the director's
That's it,
chairs?
we'll go,
That's yours.
I'll tell you what.
Ask us,
Kill
ask
something
us.
somewhere
Raise your
else.
hand.
There's not gonna be much, Tony, because it's all about tennis courts, North Canal and HVAC.
Yeah.
That's really.
Let's just
you
get
just have
through
to
this for
decide.
Yeah,
Abby's sake.
this, I think we've done it, we just about promised Abby this,
You
but in
did.
the same instance, you also promised to kick in the money for some of this stuff.
Well, what
No,
we
that
did
was the curtains she did for Dorchester,
We killed the project to make the money available for
Yeah.
the curtains in the theater.
and they're up.
So yes.
Yes.
I'm always willing to trade. I
The
have no issue.
Dorchester fence, I think is what it
It
was.
was, yes.
It was.
Get to the Dorchester fence.
Well, it's a
From the
negotiation.
curtains,
It's
from the
negotiation.
curtains.
You know, bottom line is,
Ruth has a
Ruth has
question.
her hands up forever.
Please, let Ruth speak.
You can have the first 3 items, but what are the director's chairs for the
You know the way, you know the way the performers sit on these.
she has one that says
The
Abby.
stools.
Bar stools, these wood bar stools, well, they have to be replaced all the time, they look horrible. And we have one show in particular that wants the director's chairs this year, and we thought that they would be a really nice addition, it's like $400.
Okay, just wondered, I don't care about the 428, but I just didn't know what they are.
Well, we're getting,
Buy a lot better quality for less than $410.
What are these, replicas of Cecil B. DeMille?
Probably.
Barbara,
two things. First one, did we ever get the specs on the digital audio console from your guy?
I gave everything out to you last time we were here, when we went over this.
Okay. You must have it in the database then, David, I hope.
If it was given to me, it's in the database.
Okay, I'm gonna check it, thank you. I may move to have,
They were- Excuse me, they were $100 each, not 400.
Alright, I said, I can get them a lot better than $10 a piece.
Oh, I thought you were saying 400.
He said 107.
Offer, make
We're
a
getting-
motion, make a motion.
I make a motion to accept this,
I second it.
Except one.
a part of the of the budget.
Exhibit
first
A.
Part.
All the
Exhibit A.
line items?
Yeah.
$92,000.
Even the spare lamp,
92,000.
Oh, Jesus, another lamp.
every year, every
Yeah,
year.
I don't have it with me, but I will email you the specs.
Another one.
Oh.
So now there should be discussion. Okay, motion was made, was second, now we have discussion,
Now you
correct?
can
ahead,
have the discussion you
discuss.
need, yeah.
Okay.
What item are we voting on? I'm sorry.
Exhibit A.
The
92,000.
Exhibit
Exhibit A in its entirety.
You're in the back, baby.
Oh, okay, look at me like
Second
$310,000.
from last page.
No.
92.
On the wrong
That's
page.
the shows, you
You
already
did that
approved
last
in
March.
Okay,
Oh my God.
I got
Now it's the items for the
it.
right here.
Exhibit A.
There's a whole list here.
92,000.
I bet you wish, like, maybe one day I'll retire and then I won't be here begging you.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, replace Christie video
Mhm.
projector.
There it is.
You must have,
Alright, so
you
much
must have a
shows will be the
room
next
full.
meeting.
We don't actually, they have a life.
They have a lifespan.
And then the movies, you can see they start to dim because the bulb is getting close to failing,
Listen.
and then they replace it.
For
And
$2,700
then he'll think his eyesight's gone.
They should last till the sun burns out. Alright.
Okay, everybody, have a happy, healthy
We didn't
day.
vote for that.
You are we gonna vote on
Yes,
It would be
Norma
good.
made motion, I seconded it.
We have any other discussion on this matter? Nope. Looks like you're gonna get your side speaker.
Oh,
Alright,
But it's gonna cost.
I know.
who's got the roll call?
Who's got
Me?
the
John.
sheet?
Did Barbara make that motion?
Yes, I
Yes.
did.
Oh, John
Joy
seconded
seconded
it.
it.
didn't seem so. Call it out.
1 second.
There's Tony.
I don't have a sign-in sheet today.
Okay, Louise,
There is
In
none.
favor.
There is none.
I can't hear
In favor.
it. Okay. Tony,
She went out.
She'll be back.
Joyce,
Yes.
Ron Nassa.
Yes.
Dominic,
Yes.
Donald Foster, John Gray, Ruth Chris.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Anita Buchanan in here, Sandy Cooper,
Yes.
John Hess, yes, David Boyes.
No,
Yeah, we said so.
opposed to these side stage speakers.
Got Barbara Cornyn.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Okay, Joy Vesco, Ed Black,
Yes.
and David Avery.
Yes.
Yay,
Okay.
congratulations, Abby.
Finally got your side speakers. And now David can hear.
Can I go?
Thank you for the cake.
Your fault, David.
It's because of the
The
cake.
other officers have problems hearing when they're up on that stage.
Who?
No, you don't, okay.
No.
Thank you for the cake.
Thank
That's
you,
what I'm saying.
everybody.
That's why we
Double check.
voted.
I'm sure, I'm sure.
It's called bribery, right?
Hold on.
Little
We're-
cake, $7 cake, amazing what you get.
Take care,
Thank
baby.
you.
Take care.
$7 for 92, I'll do that.
Is Rocky
Any day.
over?
Rocky and the Rollers is opening November 19 season just because of you.
Oh.
If you didn't get your ticket, you're in trouble. Cause it's sold out.
No, no way.
Yeah.
Rocky and the Rollers
Yeah.
is sold out.
Is it really?
I don't
No,
know.
of course not.
Listen, I just went online last night for Cher, who has one day appearance at BB&T. And those tickets went like hotcakes at a very high premium.
Really?
She's over
Yeah.
there.
No, she's a draw.
Yeah, you're not
Talking
getting
This is her
about
last
Sharon?
farewell tour?
share.
Never.
This-
Oh,
she-
yeah.
This is her
How many
last-
times you be tired?
We're getting
It's a
closer and
hundredth
closer
last
each year.
report.
Alright, where are we gonna start?
Let's start
Monica?
back on page one,
Okay.
Derek is just minutes out, so maybe we can get it
We
through
heard
page
that
one.
Okay, let's
before
get
Derek-
whatever we
For a
can
half
done.
hour.
Okay, no.
For those of you that are new this year, the very first line, recreation fees, is blank. That won't be determined until we know what, the budget is that's approved. The second line item is also blank. That's what I referred to before. It's a contribution from the levies based on a requirement by the Millennium Agreement. The higher the expenses, the higher that calculation is and the larger their contribution is. So that'll be calculated a little bit later on. The next line item would be if we intended to use any of our reserve money to cover anything that is in this budget. So at this point in the process, we're not assuming using any reserve money, but again, that's a committee decision that we'll revisit at some point. Locker revenue, it's minimal. $400. Interest income is going up slightly, but as we all know, the rates are still low. But they are going up a little bit. The next two line items are your classes and the 10% that we withhold from the instructors. The money that we collect, we keep 10% of that for our fee. That's down a little bit. That's a guess again. Hopefully we'll get some more classes, some new instructors in this upcoming year. Then your next two items are Abbey Theater and Dances, which she already went over. Line 12 is your repertory theater. That's based on close to what we did this year. 700 tickets at $5 a person, less sales tax. Gate receipt income, there's nothing budgeted. Abbey did not book any gate shows this year. We don't plan to have any cash over and short. Revenue from your ID office, you'll see we're projecting to be over budget $12,000 this year, so I bumped this budget up a little bit, hoping that we'll have the same result next year. And miscellaneous income line 16 is your biggest source of income other than the theater, of course, and the bulk of that is estoppel fees. We charge $150 for each estoppel that the girls do and the in WPRF Accounts Receivable Office. So that's $489,000 of expected income. Any discussion on any of that? Okay. We can get through the next two sections pretty quick. He's here, but let's go through just two sections real quick because there's really not much we can do about this.
Go.
Hello. The first section is taxes, line 30, real estate taxes.
Right.
That's based on the trim notices that we just received. There's about a $4,000 increase.
Yeah, there's a $4,000 increase as Monica just said. And she had suggested to me, and I'll put this on the table, if you think there is any point, because I don't know what to look at as comparable for us to go to the tax assessor and make an impassioned plea to reduce that. That's a major increase. What did they do to the assessed value? They jacked it up.
They jacked up the clubhouse and Hastings.
Sure.
And
Go look at it and you'll see why they.
We're saying that's typical of,
Yeah.
all three of our communities.
this works, and I've done it in my apartment and for other people. They get this notice and it's got a staggering increase, but you have comparables left, right, and center. You can look everywhere. What are you gonna claim as a reason?
To argue this.
There aren't 100 clubhouses on campus. You know what I'm saying? I mean, did they have
What
this?
your claim is because it's a direct pass-through cost to the residents of the community.
Okay, did they
So,
do the same thing in the other villages?
I will tell you in Pembroke Pines, they are a very political group down there, and years ago, they approached Broward County, and all of their properties, with the exception of their clubhouse and their health club facility, are assessed at 0.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, so we got,
Simply by going to them and asking and explaining that, you know, these taxes are direct pass through to the residents
It
of
goes
this
to show you
community.
the pull they have
and-
with the
Exactly.
politicians, that's the bottom
Absolutely.
line.
That's exactly right.
alright, you got me convinced.
Okay,
We'll work on this.
all right, just real quick, 'cause we've got Derek here, the next line item's not even worth talking about, it's $90 tangible personal property taxes. Line 32 is payroll taxes, that's based on historical. I skipped over line 29, which is your total salaries and wages, that is hidden, all the detail for that, because we have to have a
That'd be a
closed
closed
meeting.
session for that.
But if
Closed
we get rid
session.
of salaries and wages, we wouldn't have to pay payroll tax.
Well, that's true, yeah, that's true. All right, we'll stop there at taxes since Derek with EKK is here to talk about the North. Sure.
There is a deadline on that. Deadline has a certain amount of time.
That deadline doesn't apply, cause he's not going through that process.
Okay, good. I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, we're not going through the regular.
Alright, we have, so our position is, and this is very reason, we want it to go away.
Yeah, cause we're
You
paying.
want relief.
Right. Okay.
Alright, there-
Okay. We'll stop shopping at
Hello,
Publix.
everybody.
This is on the North Canal, North Canal.
On the second page.
Did you bring the dominoes?
Yes.
Yeah, Derek and Domino.
They're waiting outside
Okay.
till we get approval to really shake things up.
Where's your helper?
He's
In school?
he's in school today, yeah.
Go ahead, Dan, what's gonna
Well,
happen?
I'm gonna let him take it on because of the North Canal explanation where you're at, what
The
the
jungle.
discoveries and, you know, the plans and
Yeah,
as per what you're.
yeah, exactly. So there's two main functions to this project. And as you all know, that canal is about 4,000 feet, so, you know, it's a direct scaled item, you know. If you break it down, the overall cost, there we go. If you break down the overall cost, that's, you know, on your budget number, you know, you got approximately 4,000 lineal feet. And, you know, yes, the number is big, but once you divide that by 4,000, now you're about $240 per linear foot, okay? So that includes a diffusing structure at the very west end for the reclaimed water.
Confusing?
Yeah, what's happening right now is that pipe that's coming out from the reclaimed water facility is discharging at about 750,000 to 1,000,000 gallons per day. That water carries velocity, and then once it hits the water, it creates eddies, and that whole western portion over here, where the discharge point is getting washed out. You know, if you walk over there, you can see that it's basically belled out to a pretty symmetrical circle. So that's the water just kind of mixing around and diffusing and deteriorating the lake bank, or not the lake bank, but the canal banks and the bottom. So part of this effort is to fix that permanently and also clean up the 4,000 lineal feet of vegetation. So the the equipment that's necessary for getting rid of that kind of vegetation is massive. You know, some of you folks may have seen these big, they call them mobarks, you know, they chew up trees. So that, you know, that piece of equipment's $1 million. Then you have the backhoe and the front end loader and the hauling trucks. So, you know, you start to get a sense of the scale and the size of the equipment that's necessary to take on this task. And, you know, you're looking at, you know, probably 300 to 400 truckloads of vegetation that's gonna be pulled out of that area. So, you know, that's after it's ground up. So, you know, each haul is about $150 per haul. And then, you know, you've got the size of the equipment and just the expense of the equipment. So, you know, the number is big, I agree with you, but once you divide it, you get a per linear foot cost. And it's 240 plus or minus per, 240 plus or minus dollars per foot.
Tony?
How long would it take to do this?
We have a schedule for 2 to 3 months, maximum 3 months.
Another question, which you may not have considered. That's a real jungle up there, and there are things living in there.
We don't wanna know.
There's alligators in there, there's snakes in there, there's God knows what in there, and when we start rolling heavy equipment through there, Are we gonna chase all those little critters out into the village?
They're gonna be.
Yes.
Yes.
They're gonna be seeking refuge somewhere, yeah, that's for sure.
Tony.
Okay, we
Somebody
clean it,
out front, Donald, thank you.
Well, one
we're gonna
last,
clean it all, we're gonna clean it all out. Now it's gonna look beautiful.
And then we would have to landscape it.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
how
Get
are
to
you
the
gonna keep
beautiful
it
part.
from,
From
that,
regrowing.
we're not gonna give up the unclaimed water, am I right, guys? Is this, I mean,
Give
it's,
up?
you know, I mean, you're not gonna give it up.
No.
You
not
can't.
the reclaimed water, no.
So what we're gonna have is the same thing happening all over again, that's why I'm suggesting.
And once you get it cleared, you're gonna
It
keep
will
it
grow.
cleared, you're gonna landscape it.
Yeah,
And still
And
got-
Will you be
maintain
able to lay, I mean, what
Yeah.
kind of plants, well,
I mean, what I would recommend is just a landscaping hedge, 10 to 12 feet high on the entire north lawn. And that way, you can come in with your trimmers and trim it, you got a visual barrier, a minor sound barrier, and it's maintainable.
and nothing else
like
will
that.
grow in there again?
You could put grass.
No
Not if we
guarantee,
keep it up.
Tony. No
Right.
guarantee.
Well, I mean, if you don't maintain it, yeah, trees will grow back. Brazilian peppers will grow back.
What you got is 45 years of garbage down there.
Yeah,
Where
and
were
the
you
other
at,
thing,
Lynn?
the
I
other thing,
wasn't here.
the other important thing that's part of this project,
No,
sorry,
that's okay, go ahead.
is a regrading of that canal. So, at the juncture right here where the bridge is, what we found in the survey process is that, just outside of that culvert that crosses, over or underneath that bridge, there's about 2 foot of sediment that's settled in from the canal banks. So, you've got a 2 foot elevated bottom to this
Are we
canal.
Since we're pulling out all of the soil fixers, all of the roots, we're gonna have to put in geotube.
Yeah.
No?
No.
What's gonna prevent the shoreline from
The angle of referrals.
It's 4 to 3,
Won't
that's
wanna
4 to 3, right? That's required by code.
Whatever code is.
All the canals that you see that are Lake Worth Drainage District canals are on a 2 to 1.
2 to 1, okay.
I mean, it is kind of steep, but, we're limited by what's existing, and that's what was originally created. Just over the course of time.
And we don't want people near it anyhow, do we?
No, you don't,
Well, if there's fish in there, you're gonna have people there.
What problem are we correcting? I've come late to this party,
The
I'd like to
jungle.
know.
The jungle.
No, she wants to know why are we doing it?
Yeah, why are we
I
doing
know
it?
what
What
she
problem are we correcting?
Because the jungle is shedding off and encroaching on the canal, and it's interdicting flow. We got all kinds of issues up there.
Okay.
And when you say diffuser, are you gonna stay at the end it's at, or are you gonna run a pipe and bring it in from the other end too?
just at the end, it's
Okay.
currently located.
Okay, and the water company is gonna be happy with you attaching something to the pipe?
Basically, we're putting what we're doing is we're just putting a concrete collar to fix that pipe. And then once it dumps out, it's kind of like a spillway with some diffuser blocks in it.
You gotta go back there, Louise, it's
Oh, yeah, I
it's
walked back there.
unspeakable.
My
Are we gonna
thought
have to
about
see-
trucking, we're
let's
gonna have
wait till we
350 to
talk about it.
400 round trips. Would it be worth our while to take the fence and the shrubbery down at the end at Haverhill and have trucks come and go just on
How
one
did
road
that
and do
spot,
all the
yeah.
damage to only one road rather than.
Is it our property
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
where you wanna cut through?
Oh, we would have to get.
It would be
permission
our
from the-
fence.
from the county
Okay.
to-
It would be a
It's the
temporary
Aretha Brown.
roadway connection
Yeah,
permit.
exactly.
It would be a separate permit, but it's totally feasible,
Alright.
not out of it. And it's a great idea because.
Yeah, right? Marcia,
After all this is cleared out of the canal, what type of company, would it be like Seacrest to keep it, maintained, or
Of
would
course.
we have to get a different company, I don't know. I
could
don't
be
know.
Seacrest.
They could maintain this?
Any maintenance
See,
goes.
I think to landscape it is going to be expensive,
Very.
To say the least.
right? And then, yes, to
Maintain it.
maintain it. So,
You're dealing with scaled quantities here, so.
But I didn't know if Seacrest has the facilities or the people to take care of this, that's my, or not necessarily Seacrest, any kind of company like that, to deal with this, that's.
I'm just concerned about erosion once you take all the roots out, well, the trees out. I don't
Then
know
you
if
have to
that's
put
a
barriers,
realistic
wait.
concern, but you don't think?
Once the grasses and everything,
I'll put that.
and the way that we slope the canal bank is it slopes away from the top of the bank. So all the water is gonna be running to the outside of the canal, it's not gonna be running into the canal. And it's just gonna be pitched so that it just conveys to whatever its natural collection drainage system is.
Just a quick question, in the RFP, what you're making up for is putting it up for bid, does that include the sod, includes the grading, everything on the canal, right? This is all one,
Inclusive, all
all
inclusive.
inclusive?
One, you know, the standard practice for these canals is to regrade it at the 2-to-1 and, you know, let the natural grass grow on that bank, just like they do with Lake Worth Drainage District. You know, they got the section right now that they did on Belvedere Road, it was pretty much just like your forest here. Big Australian pines, southern yellow pines, Brazilian peppers, you know, so what they do is they regrade it and, you know, during the summertime or whatever, natural vegetation and grasses grow back. But if they do get a washout, then they just come back and they spot regrade it, you know, they just correct it on a spot by spot basis.
I'm not quite sure if this pertains, but the construction of homes across the street and then the possibility of a development of the golf course, would that have any impact on what you would be doing in those canals?
This is your property, so I doubt it.
I just thought that maybe there was a residual with the water runoff or whatever.
Not in the Nordic.
Well, any development has to contain its own water, so. The golf course is kind of a unique situation because you have drainage interconnections between, you know, this section. Right here, you've got some drainage outfalls coming into the north side of the golf course, and then down here, on the bottom side, you have interconnections to the main outfall for the entire community.
How would the golf course issue impact us up in the north end?
If you don't ask, you don't know, so that's
He
what I
didn't
did.
know. Only the one place, you know, where we had the trouble with the pipe over by where the new AB building is, over that way.
Yeah. Any other questions
No.
for Derek on this? Alright,
We done?
I guess the bottom line is, what is it gonna cost us
It's
over
right here.
time?
Right there.
$575,000.
We'll talk
$1 million.
about-
I didn't know if they.
Why don't we
I'm
talk
talking
about this later?
The project. The maintenance costs are something else again,
That's-
but
And landscaping.
what are the
Addition.
costs of keeping that canal dredged and properly graded and open over time? And in other words, is this a project that needs to be done?
Right away.
Well, exactly. So you wanna think about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that afterwards.
Sure.
Don't you think?
Is this a project you could do in phases or like sections?
Yeah, he's got it in
Could you do
phases.
from-
He's got it in 3 phases,
Right.
but it has to.
If you do it in phases, you're gonna be
Has to be.
incurring
No, you spend-
multiple mobilization
Got it.
expenses.
More cost.
Yeah.
So just to give you a round figure, the mobilization cost just to get the equipment and the, you know, materials and whatever on site is gonna be $25,000 to $40,000.
Yeah.
Just the mobilization
For
cost to
the
get all that
equipment,
equipment
yeah.
ready and get it on site. So,
Louise?
Does this improve the water quality
No.
for all
No.
over Century Village? I mean, by improving the flow, you improve the water quality?
It has nothing
I
to do
think the
with.
main impact is on that canal,
That's it, the canal.
right? I mean, I've been concerned for some time about that reclaim, trying to get it
Right.
out
Get it flowing.
to the length.
Yeah.
But as he pointed out, there's tremendous pressure when that stuff's coming in, and it's just chewing up that end of the canal, right? I mean, I would put the riprap on either side
and the other thing, you
something
know,
on the bottom.
the other thing I just wanna add to that, ma'am, is, you know, when you have those dry times in South Florida, that canal bed is exposed.
Yeah.
So it starts getting dried out, it starts, you know, it has a bad odor to it, so, you know, that is an aesthetic as well as a functional issue with that northern canal.
I don't know if you've ever been in there, up there, when that thing discharges.
Yeah.
I think that's about a 6-inch pipe.
Have seen it.
That stuff comes out of there like Niagara Falls.
Mhm.
Donald?
Yeah, just speaking to Derek's point, what we're talking about with the dry out is on the east end of the canal,
Right.
which is the very opposite of where the water comes in. What what's going on there is because of the sandbars and humps and bumps throughout, you don't get water in there. And it does dry out and it does stink. If you live in Norwich, Sheffield, you'll smell it about this time of year. It'll start to dry out.
Okay,
You know, we did look at a project to literally channel that water to the other end
we did,
and have
right,
it come back
right
from
down
the
there,
other
didn't we at
direction.
one time look at something?
I hate to admit it.
Yeah, I hate to have you admit it, but I know you did.
I thought it was kind of a neat idea,
Yeah.
but it's not cheap.
No, it's $5 a foot. $10.
That's a big difference.
The east side of that canal is a dead end, right? It's,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a huge catch basin right here at the northeast corner.
Yeah.
And a lot of water dumps into that corner, but it is a dead end, it stops.
Stagnant.
So all your flow comes from the east and the west to the central channel and then down, kinda same thing here, north, south, central channel. And then it all discharges down here at the Lakewood Drainage District.
Is this something we should consider reserving out?
Well, I think we should discuss what we wanna do
Okay.
when Derek is done. I don't think we should discuss it now.
Yeah. Fine. Any other questions for Terry?
What's the bottom line on that?
It's just shy of $1 million.
975.
It's right there.
Probably doesn't know.
And wow, there are two or
It's on the
three
second
other
page,
towns.
John.
And Derek actually has put this out for bid, right, Derek?
Yes, it's out. Yeah, we got a budget number and then we're gonna get a hard bid on the individual unit costs, so.
We're gonna have any problems from the water management district playing with this?
No, it's a maintenance issue.
Okay.
And the way the South Florida Water Management District considers these types of developments and these types of drainage systems is once they issue the permit and then it's certified after construction, it's your responsibility to maintain.
When it says Century Village North, just that wording, that's their well fields for West Palm Beach.
Yes.
The city of West Palm Beach.
Right.
Be the
So they'd
great
be just as happy
catch
for us to
drainage
clean it up.
district.
Sure they will.
All right, Donald.
Derek, this probably got covered when I said jump out of the road. Is there any urgency with regard to flood control, like a hurricane or heavy rain? What I'm concerned about is, will this thing overflow if we leave it and we have to worry about residences being impacted?
Well, the issue that you have, part of this process is that you have washouts happen at each and every one of your catch basins next to the canal.
Right.
So during those heavy storms, it's getting to a point where you're getting washouts, the catch basins are overwhelmed. And what we're proposing is kind of like a knee wall around the catch basin so it doesn't overflow and then wash out on the backside. So, that's part of this effort is correcting that, latent issue. So what will happen in the future if the canal isn't maintained and those structures aren't maintained is you'll get to a failure point where the washout just creates a failure in the drainage pipe or in the drainage structure, and then you'll have a localized flooding event.
And the elevation is all towards the center of the property, it's basically bold.
Yeah.
So if you have an overflow there, it's gonna hit the residences 100%.
You'll start seeing a cascade of different failures along that whole north section because it's pretty typical the way that they design the drainage. They took about, probably a quarter mile and they're draining it on these long stretches of road, like this stretch here, from here to there, it all drains sheet flow to one catch basin. And when you get those 3 inches per hour, it really hits that catch basin hard. So, there is, there's, and from what I understand, there's already some failures at a footbridge going over the canal.
Yeah, we close that.
Some washouts, so you're starting to see the preliminary indicators of your drainage system starting to fail.
Are we gonna see an engineering document on what was just briefed? We're gonna see some pieces of paper.
Something he can scan, I think that's a little big.
I can send you an email.
Yeah, that's better.
I brought this just in case somebody needed a visual right now.
Or whack upside the head.
Sure, I want that, sure.
Yeah, so send us an email.
Okay. You want me to send it to Donald? I think I have your email address as
Yeah,
well.
send it to me, but also to
Yep,
Dan. And
okay.
then-
Yes, ma'am.
How long would it take to clean this all out?
About 3 months.
He
We're
said-
giving them 60 to 90 days.
Yes, he said that.
Yeah.
It is quite the effort. I mean, don't get it wrong.
Forty-five years.
When we say clean out, do we mean the roots of the trees as well?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a ridge, brush cutting.
no,
Ripped out.
Okay,
yeah,
It's
it's
all
just,
gonna grow back.
But
this
is
is gonna
it,
get,
I got you.
it's gonna get ripped to shreds and then reshaped.
And make it pristine.
That's the
Yeah.
unfortunate
Then you would
landscape.
breathe.
Any other questions?
With the grass plants.
Going,
no-
going.
Something that has to be done.
Okay.
Alright.
Thank you so much, Derek.
Pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Oh, you're not gonna leave those.
Nice fellow.
No.
You can take your-
That-
Oh, I can leave them here if you want.
He's
You
done
have your own
before.
copy.
Yeah, I've got a
He's
printer at
done
the
other
office,
stuff.
obviously goes right there.
Oh, you have a printer that prints that size?
Yeah.
Oh, that's very nice.
That's
Comes in handy.
Wish I had one.
He'll be
Put it in the
over.
budget.
Go to Kinko's, they have.
Yeah, that's true.
They do.
I know, they can do anything down there.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, Miss Monica.
On the sign?
Okay,
Monica, could you do me a favor, move that chair and we all move down a little bit so I can give Sandra a little more room here.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Because I don't wanna have her going on the table with me.
You don't have to push it, she'll just take it.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Just so everyone knows, we are bringing in lunch.
Before you go any further, are we gonna discuss this, what just happened here?
If you like.
Okay, well, it's fresh in our minds. We just saw something that was given to us by Tim with the air conditioning, what is needed in the clubhouse in phases, okay? I don't know about anybody else at this table, I've been in North Canal, I've been over there when I see the raccoons and all those other animals. But I'm gonna tell you, I would rather spend money on the first phase of the air conditioner. I think this canal can wait. This is close to $1 million. We don't have the money. You're gonna, you just spent 92. It's gonna hit the people, and you can't hit a big sum to these people. And I think that this should be put on the back burner. That's my own opinion. I don't know how anybody else feels here about this $1 million.
Is it actually in this budget?
No, it's not.
That's an easy problem.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
don't
just saying,
put it
I
in.
think it should be held off, not put it in.
No, Monica gave us three things. The
Yeah.
AC, the North Canal, and the heating, the roof for Hastings are not.
That's what I'm saying, they're
in-
not
in
in
here.
Okay.
I got you.
Just to say that this is just the engineering, you can do whatever, but like any of those phases, even with the air conditioning and
Right.
just the canal the same way.
I'm just trying to keep
That's
the
all up to
budget
your
low,
choice, yeah.
and I think that this is something that can wait another year easily.
Yes.
AC is more important to our people.
Oh, okay. Marcia.
Well, the air conditioning is a capital improvement, and we shouldn't be paying for
It's
that.
not a
So we can
capital
take care of it,
improvement.
oh, yes, it is.
It is not a capital
Well,
improvement.
that's what you said, but that has never gone to arbitration or hasn't
No, it
been
hasn't.
discussed, and
No,
maybe
it
that's part of the problem. And then we'd have money to do the other.
Okay.
So, you have to take all that into
Marcia,
consideration.
you wanna go to arbitration, take out a checkbook, go get a lawyer, and have fun.
We're not doing it. Yeah, all better.
Anything else?
Okay, go ahead, Mama.
I just made a brief calculation here, every time we spend $1 million, it adds up to roughly $10 to $11
That's right.
per unit, per month.
$1 a hundred.
Right,
I
So,
gotcha.
it's a lot of money.
Every book is about 96K.
And we have to evaluate what's necessary and what's not necessary.
I agree.
Right.
That's why I
Yeah.
suggested you might, if you give it any priority, we might consider a reserve line
yeah.
That's right.
to accumulate the
insurance
funds.
reserve.
Yes.
Okay?
The air conditioner.
That's why we started the reserve before, and let me just report on that real quick,
The infrastructure
since David brought it up, right. We currently have $684,000 in our reserve funds. That was as of July 31st.
That's good.
So we continue to collect $4 per unit per month that's going into this reserve fund.
So that's increasing by 400K a year, right?
Right.
Yes, it increases at that level, $377,000 a year.
David?
Where are we now?
So,
684.
in a couple of years, unless some other more critical priority, you might wanna go back to this project. Go ahead, Tony.
I think that we should, where did she leave? I think that we should put off, I'm recommending that we put off the North Canal, reserve it for, I'd say 3 years. I'm comfortable, I've seen the canal. And I mean, you know, I know there's problems, but right now, with the things that we have for Yuko and the things we wanna do here, I think it would be a good idea to put it off. I don't know if we need a vote on that, or it just,
Well, it's not in the budget currently.
no, what I'm saying is on that, do I have to?
Oh, the procedure.
Yes, I'm asking for procedure, cause that is not my strong suit.
Yeah.
Abby left this already?
Yes.
Chicken, cow.
She's gonna be here next month to discuss the shows in more
Yeah.
depth.
Just as a matter of interest, has this sort of project been done in any of the other villages?
Shoreline? Yeah, but not a canal, but.
No, like this would.
They've been maintained in the
They've
other
been maintained.
communities.
Oh, it was never allowed to overgrow.
Right.
I was gonna say, that probably hasn't been touched since it started.
Just to give you an example,
It's a
Boca
jungle.
spends $25,000-$30,000 a year just
And a buggy one at that.
redoing their
Yeah.
shorelines. They have it in their budget to keep
I got
shaking in there.
Stuart,
Realistically, you can't make two out of one. And we have said that over and over again, and we have kept on saying that we must put things in a priority order.
Mm-hmm.
And what is most important, we do. There are organizations here that want to fix a tennis court and the other stuff. I'm sympathetic for them, but you cannot
Do
squeeze
everything.
blood out of a stone. And if you keep on raising the fees, we'll have more than politicians walking around here. We'll have a lot of people with
Guns.
wheelchairs and so on, screaming and hollering they can't afford it. So let's go ahead and pick out those things that we must do, which is priority, which we can't live without, and put the other stuff on a back burner by putting
Reserve
the
it.
money aside for it.
Very good.
Like everybody else saves. You wanna buy a new car, put money away.
the infrastructure reserve is growing, just heard the numbers. Probably be up over $1 million within a year. And then we can revisit some of these things.
Yeah.
That's when you
And
have the
plus-
money.
And plus, look at the AC.
Yes.
That's $2.5 million, any way you cut it, boys and girls. And that's a lot of money.
I hear the
But
big
also
number,
important.
I hear the big number, and maybe Dan has this other number I'm gonna talk about. How much money have we spent over the last 5 years
Oh, no,
on air conditioning repairs?
I haven't,
I can't even guesstimate it, but I could tell you that it's been up there, you know?
Think about it.
But
I'm not
the best
disagreeing.
thing that we decided to do is get this engineering report. I think that the other engineering report, even for the canal, it just gives you basis on how to prioritize everything that you've been having problems with. So I feel that the engineering report that we got for AC and the engineering report that you asked us to get for the canal, you have it all in front of you now, it's up to you to decide which way we go, you know?
That's right.
But in this point, we spent a lot of money on air conditioning over 13 years.
And we'll keep spending it until we start to fix it.
One thing that I have to say, reading the report and talking to him, some of the things that we've done, okay, in those monies that we spent was good, okay? Let's say, for instance, in the party room, even though he's saying to restructure the ductwork, our initial thing to actually have the return plenum coming above the ceiling and not having ductwork, okay, is because we didn't have the room, okay? And what he's planning to do there with the ductwork change, as you read this thing, is because the smaller room, the ductwork, the way it's being forced, the air is being forced, we couldn't get ductwork to reach that side of it due to the fact that everything was in the way, electrical, sprinklers, and the ductwork that was existing. So what he's asking to do there is redo that ductwork in that smaller, okay, so that we can get to it.
That's always been a big
So,
problem, that
yeah,
ductwork.
but the unit there, our idea of doing this and spending the money has worked because the unit that's one unit that's there, okay, is big enough to handle the whole room, and that was the concept of it all, you know, so. That was just one thing of the, if you read here.
Would we do all 4 phases?
No.
We would just,
Not at
no,
once.
okay, no, I'm just questioning that. We would pick one of the phases to do, in other words.
You'd start one,
We'd
two.
start with phase,
You have
no,
to-
okay,
yeah.
I like phase 1.
And that's how you would
Plus
start,
parameters.
that's why he put it phase one.
Okay.
They did it just for you, I
The other
think.
thing that I want you to understand too, and just in your read, is what he was talking about, the VAVs inside there. Remember, we have this $120,000 computer controlled system that really couldn't do anything, you know, to really shut the rooms. Well, the VAVs will be, the
Somebody's
VAVs,
phone.
the VAVs will be the ones that will be controlled by the computer to turn this on and off, and how he had mentioned there, the frequency drive that we spent in the past also. The frequency drives will be controlled by these VAVs so that when the pressure increases, the blowers will slow down and pressurize, okay, so it won't blow out ductwork. So again, it's correcting a lot of situations that he's saying, pressure, control, management, and just to let you know, what we were trying to do, it was nothing wrong, it's just that we couldn't correct it, is that outside air, all the dampers for the outside air almost had to be shut down because we could not control the humidity control, okay? And that's why when he went around and he looked at the report, he'll show that we have no control. We shut down the only unit that he said, and I didn't even realize that, is the one in the corridor. That outside air is coming in a 2-foot or an 18-inch of ductwork. I mean, we're getting a massive amount of outside air to the unit in the main lobby, which he's gonna, again, damper controls and things to control that with the CO2.
It's gonna make a difference.
I recall in our discussion, maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 meetings ago, when we discussed the air conditioning and we said that would be our top priority because we kept on putting Band-Aids on it and kept on costing us money. We said, whatever it costs after we get the engineering study, we were going to go ahead and get it done once and for all and get it off the table. And this is the only way to go. I don't see why we are even wasting time
We already
discussing
discussed
what
it.
we've already agreed upon.
I think we have to go back to the budget, Monica's, and get on
Right.
beam here.
Right. And I agree with you, Stuart. We have.
Yeah, well, we're reducing
roll out of it.
Monica's budget by what, $900,000 and we got it made?
Would you like to
That's not included in there.
present something, or shall we have one?
You wanna finish this page?
Let's finish this page.
Yeah, and then we'll
Okay,
stop.
What page are we up to now?
Page two.
Page 2 of 9,
Yeah.
we just finished talking about taxes
We're
and
up to 30.
Oh, yeah,
next
that's right, I
section,
forgot.
starting on line 34, is insurance. This is your big policy, you know, that we just renewed effective August 1st, when we have the insurance presentations, your general liability to your property insurance, business interruption, all those.
Did you stay with Brown and Brown?
Yes.
We did,
Yeah.
all 3 communities chose to stay with Brown and Brown this year. It's about the same as the previous year. My budget is, because I did budget an 5% increase effective August of next year. I have no idea what that will be. But that's the biggest number. This line 35 is your auto insurance. That's for the 2 trucks that WPRF owns, that
We
the
have 2
maintenance
trucks
guys,
and a trailer.
2 trucks and a trailer.
Should it cover?
Yeah.
Somebody's phone is beeping on here.
It went up, the Gators is in the equipment floater policy, and that premium is in line 34.
Yeah, that's something else.
We're moving more with the Gators because we don't have to buy auto insurance for the Gators, and they're cheaper on
Cheaper in the
fuel
long
and
time,
everything else,
yeah.
cheaper to operate. Right. Line 36, other insurance. Typically, this line has nothing but our employment practices and crime insurance policy in it. It's a $25,000 deductible per occurrence, and we can't get it any lower than that. The one thing I am asking to add to this line item, which is coverage that we have never had before, but I think it's very important, is to pick up a cybersecurity policy. I did get a bid for that policy. I made application and everything last December to see what it would cost, because I had absolutely no idea. And I was offered a policy for just under $10,000 for the 3 communities. So I would really like to get that coverage, because we do store an awful lot of personal information, specifically for AR, bank account information for our residents, and God forbid we were ever hacked, we could have a real
So
problem.
this is an increase of 2,600,
Yes,
so we're
for no
protected that
more
way.
than that,
Yeah.
yes, this is an allocation of that total premium that I'm asking for. Workers' comp is what it is. Unfortunately, our mod went way up this year. But the manual rates went down a little bit. So we're not really looking at that big of an increase. I'm hoping in the next year or two that mod's gonna start to go the other direction. That mod's based on the last 3 years of rolling premiums and got a couple of bad years of workers' comp claims.
Express my ignorance, what does it break out to, MOD?
That's your
That
mod.
means the Ministry of Defense.
That's your mod rate, which is how they rate your workers' comp insurance. And it's based on your actual claims for the last 3 years. And what that means is our mod is going from 1.5 to 1.32, so that means we're paying an additional 32% premium above a flat premium because of our claims.
The letters break out to anything, words?
Modification.
Yeah.
That's all it
Oh,
means
yeah,
is
okay.
modification.
Yeah.
Abbreviation, David.
Yeah.
I didn't know it.
Mod is easier.
Sorry.
Okay, and the last item, 38, you're gonna see a really nice decrease in primarily medical insurance. And the big reason for that is we had 3 employees in this community that came off of our insurance and went on Medicare this past year.
That's good.
So it made a big difference.
How many are
in
going
it.
on Medicare next year?
I think, do you offer like a secondary coverage?
No, we do
Okay.
not. No.
That's right.
So that was a nice decrease. The very last item on here is something that we hashed out, what, Marcia?
Back to the insurance. Was dental always included?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
They don't give you much, but it's something, you know, it's included.
We
but-
have 2 dental plans. Most people take the HMO because it's very inexpensive. The PPO, they have to, if they want that, they have to pay up 100% of the difference in the premium. You know, for a single coverage, it's like $5 a pay period, something like that for dental insurance. Very inexpensive.
Yeah. That's.
The very last item on this page, we hashed out quite a bit at our last operations committee meeting, which is furniture and flooring, and the only thing we had budgeted in there this year was a purchase of chairs. That was tabled at the last committee meeting we had, and Eva have done some research and found a chair. It's actually a Shelby Williams chair.
We're looking to stay with Shelby Williams. It's what we have and it has lasted us. It has served us well all these years. But this is a seat that will accommodate a larger size.
It's 1.5 inches wider than the current chairs
And
you
that
have.
seems to be it, right?
Yeah.
Can you find anything? I'm sorry?
The sylph-like avoirdupois of our residents would require this.
Especially in the-
Barbara,
I have a problem with this. I go up to the card room and I'm up there a couple of days of the week. Other people here are up there. The seats are okay, but they're uncomfortable, truthfully. But I am not going to spend $125 to upholster or to make a new chair for these people to sit. Because you can go out and buy a chair just like you're sitting on right now, okay? Without arms stackable or with arms stackable for about $30 a chair. With a reinforced bar on the side. I have the figures, David Boas and I did research on it. Yes, they only come in black leather.
So
Will the people mind? I don't think so, because we're talking about 4 times the price almost. So I think it's something you have to look at. The cushions you can get that come on it, instead of being an inch, it goes any place from 1 inch to 3 inches. And I will be glad to send you what I've gotten as far as research. Because I don't think the people care if it's a Shelby Williams or not. I'm sorry to tell you that.
What about the height of the chair?
The height is going to be just like the height, normal average height that you're on right now.
like these chairs
Nothing
we
wrong with
have
that,
in
right?
here.
No.
Yeah.
Yes,
They seem very solid.
And not only that, they're the ones we saw were
like
a little
pedals on
bit
a bike.
thicker in the seating.
Well,
I don't
that's
like
good.
this here
That's
inch.
good.
I think a 2 inch is better.
And
Well,
easily
actually,
cleaned.
when we redid the party room chairs, we went for 3 inch.
Yes, but look what
Yes.
we paid too.
And
I
then
mean,
we-
you know,
yes.
it's all relative.
Of course.
I'm just saying, so if these chairs in 5 years don't hold up that great, what did you spend? To get a whole new chair? Maybe $15,000, the most. So in 5 years, you can afford to change it. But if when you go like this, you're talking about a whole new ballgame. Not saying this isn't nice, but I'm saying what's practical. That's all.
That's what we're talking about.
Tony's first.
Tony.
I don't think, you know, it's nice, but air conditioning chairs. You don't wanna sit in the chairs if you're sweating your ass. So,
But that's what your job is
That's what I
decide
said.
what your priorities are and
My
what money you're
priority-
gonna give us to do what project.
We have to
We
make
ain't
that
gonna do this
decision
one,
right
What
here.
objection, hold on, what objection would WPRF have to this kind of chair? It
No,
served us
well,
very well.
She's not
David,
saying
why do
that.
we need them this year?
I'm not
You
saying,
don't. We don't,
Nobody
so
says
stop
that.
saying we can have this one instead of this one. When I'm ready to get this one instead of this one,
Alright, so we
I
don't
want
need
the
it
little
then.
chunkier set.
we
You know,
research.
So
I'm,
then
you know,
just take it off.
I like it,
So
I'm
take it
built
off,
for
Tony.
comfort,
Make
honey.
all right,
Excuse me, make a motion to take it off
you
then.
wanna
I make a
remove the
motion,
line and
yes.
retire it.
Yes.
That's easy enough to
David.
do.
Well, why didn't you tell me that?
David.
David, I'm sorry, big
Alright.
mouth me.
But you and I always agree about everything. Barbara and I did do the research, but I have to agree with you, and just going back to what Stuart said, what is more important?
That's what you gotta do, priorities.
Be completely taken out.
Would you like
That,
a
that
second
we
to the
agree,
motion?
you're a second.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you. Why
Any
didn't you just tell me to
further discussion
shut
on
up?
this one?
No.
Nope.
All right, call it please.
Motion to remove, line 40,
Yeah.
78-1201.
You're very precise.
What's the account number for general ledger?
John?
So what was the rest of that name? Bill?
78-1201.
It's item number
furniture,
40, it's right next to it, it's the account number.
Okay, so that's all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Count number is good.
Okay.
Good to have that. Okay, Louise,
In favor.
Tony,
Yes,
Joyce,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Dom,
Yes.
Ruth,
Yes.
Zach Cooper,
Yes.
Reed, yes, David, yes, Boyd. Yes. Barbara,
Yes.
Stuart,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
and David Israel.
Yes.
Unanimous.
I also comment, I do thank you for looking into wider chairs with those.
You do need wider, that's true.
especially when you think about it, those people are up there for hours playing card games.
Yeah, 3 hours.
3 hours,
Yeah.
3 hours.
Hey, you wanna sit for 3
I
hours?
do sit,
I do.
we do.
I'm built for
I
comfort.
went up there and I noticed the heat load, one thing I was telling you about bringing the seats down.
Oh, guys,
Bring your
are
own.
we going
Bring your
on
own
to-
cookies.
Girls like play with, they bring their own.
Maintenance contract.
Since we're gonna start a new page, before we turn the page, lunch just arrived.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good,
So
good
there
idea.
are 6-inch little mini subs with chips and water. Number 2 is a roast beef, number 4 is a turkey, and number 5 is Italian.
Oh.
Okay. What was number 1? I didn't hear.
Roast beef.
You know 2, I think, was roast beef.
Turkey.
So I'd be happy to serve everybody if you'll tell me what your number.
Roast
You want
beef.
5?
5.
Oh, okay.
Italian?
What else?
Anybody else?
I don't like Italian
Oh,
hoagie.
I do.
Italian 5? 5 is Italian. Alright, Italian, roast beef.